希望世界各地的老师们都能参与起来。
今年夏前，联合国开发计划署计划代表处发起了他数字未来创造营，
旨在为12至18岁的女孩，特别是乡村地区的女孩们提供学习数字化技能的机会，并探索如何得以自用，通过数字赋能，给自己的家乡和社会带来切实的改变。
为弥合数字鸿沟，我们在全中国招募志愿者。短短的3个月内，近100名志愿者已在中国落地了20余个线下创造营，30多个团队提交了他们的科技促进可持续发展的创新方案。我们为志愿者提供的学习支持工具和数字化平台课程，已支持超过400位女孩参与学习 STEM 相关内容，开源课程浏览量超过9万。
男女同学都有学好理科的能力，也有学好文科的能力，
了解了可持续发展目标是什么，然后怎么做编程，然后怎么做 PPT。
女孩和科技，
终于改变世界的无限可能。
喜欢物理，然后咱们第一反应就是女孩子学什么物理啊？
我们说啊，男性的成功与他的事业来衡量，女性的成功与他家庭来衡量。女孩们，你们同意这个说法吗？
有女生问我，科学家到底长什么样子？是不是总是穿着白大褂，戴着眼镜，一头短发，一脸严肃？在我的身边有很多硬核的女科学家。除了有卷发、有长发、有染过色的科学家呢，没有固定的一张脸。
在农村教书，坚信只要努力，我和我的学生就一定能走进科学的殿堂，领略科学的魅力。
很多人在实验室挑灯夜战，在工厂中的一些反思、撰写学术论文，对人以是心满，但更是快乐和充满意义。
我的身边有很多拥有很强适应能力的女性科研工作者。
很多困难不是只有女孩子会遇到，也不是只有男孩子能做。
最重要的，只要你是坚持，任何事情都不去放弃。
我们现代女性在可持续发展中都将起到决定性的作用。
女性的很多
科学研究需要更全面和更真实的结果，而女性独有的视角可以让研究是更加全面。
科学是不分性别的，只要你有兴趣，你也可以成为一名科学家。像我们这样的女性科研工作者越来越多，才能够发出更大的声音，能够更好的发挥这种她力量。
梦想不因性别设限，勇敢的追求自己做科研的梦想。
有梦想就去实现。
科学吧，女孩，
科学吧，女孩，
让科技性别差，
支持更多女性参与科学，
支持更多女性参与科学，
期待着更多女性参与科研，
支持更多的女性加入到科学研究的领域中来。
更好实现自己的梦想。
他们对这个世界有着无限的好奇。
我的家庭是不健康，我爷爷不舍得开空调，影响水下生物。
女孩们提出的这一个个问题，是对未来的探索，也是世界目前面临的挑战。当科技遇见它，会发生怎样的奇妙反应？
我们需要让教育走出校园，保持教育的趣味性。
在城市的最后一步，让居民体现了各种垃圾包含的种类，让居民对垃圾分类更加的清晰。
用心理限制信息和公开现实，帮助投资人执行社交活动和提高参与。
由于牧民直售牛羊的收入比较低，所以我们想网络上售卖自己的特色产品，来帮助牧民提高收入。
少女的眼中可容纳下星辰大海，通过我们的努力，能让每一个女孩子都能做到这样。希望世界各地的老师们都能参与起来。
今年夏前，联合国开发计划署计划代表处 发起人他书者未来，创造意义。
旨在为12至18岁的女孩，特别是乡村地区的女孩们提供学习数字化技能的机会，并探索如何得以自用，通过数字赋能，给自己的家乡和社会带来切实的改变。
为弥合数字鸿沟，我们在全中国招募志愿者。短短的3个月内，近100名志愿者已在中国落地了20余个线下创造营。30多个团队提交了他们的科技促进可持续发展的创新方案。我们为志愿者提供的学习知识工具和数字化平台课程，已支持超过400位女孩参与学习 STEM 相关内容，开源课程浏览量超过9万。
男女同学都有学好理科的能力，也有学好文科的能力。
了解了可持续发展目标是什么，然后怎么做编程，然后怎么做 PPT。
女孩和科技
终于改变世界的无限可能。
喜欢物理，然后咱们第一反应就是女孩子学什么物理啊？
我们说啊，男性的成功与他的事业来衡量，女性的成功与他家庭来衡量。女孩们，你们同意这个说法吗？
有女生问我，科学家到底长什么样子？是不是总是穿着白大褂，戴着眼镜，一头短发，一脸严肃？在我的身边有很多硬核的女科学家，他们有卷发，有长发，有染过色的科学家呢，没有固定的一张脸。
在农村教书，坚信只要努力，我和我的学生就一定能走进科学的殿堂，领略科学的魅力。
咱们内心更现实，挑战越在工厂工人一些反思，撰写吸收论文，对面一些希望，但更是快乐和充满意义。
我的身边有很多拥有很强适应能力的女性科研工作者。
很多困难不是只有女孩子会遇到，也不是只有男孩子能做。
最重要的品质，那就是坚持，任何事情我们都绝不放弃。
我们现代女性在可持续发展中都将起到决定性的作用。
女性的很多
科学研究需要更全面和更真实的结果，而女性独有的视角可以让研究是更加全面。
科学是不分性别的，只要你有兴趣，你也可以成为一名科学家。像我们这样的女性科研工作者越来越多，才能够发出更大的声音，能够更好的发挥这种她力量。
梦想不因性别设限，
勇敢的追求自己做科研的梦想，
有梦想就去实现。
科学吧，女孩，
科学吧，女孩，
让科技避免差，
支持更多女性参与科学，
支持更多女性参与科学，
期待着更多女性参与科研，
支持更多的女性加入到科学研究的领域中来。
和更好实现自己的梦想。
他们对这个世界有着无限的好奇。
我家庭是不健康，我爷爷不舍得开空调，影响水下生物的。
女孩们提出的这一个个问题，是对未来的探索，也是世界目前面临的挑战。当科技遇见它，会发生怎样的奇妙反应？
我们需要让教育走出校园，保持教育的趣味性。
上城市的最后，主要向居民体现了各种垃圾包含的种类，让居民对垃圾分类更加的清晰。
用心理限制性有和通常现实帮助这些人进行社交活动和社交参与。
由于牧民直售牛羊的收入比较低，所以我们想网络上售卖自己的特色产品，来帮助牧民提高收入。
少女的眼中可容纳下星辰大海。通过我们的努力，能让每一个女孩子都能做到这样。希望世界各地的老师们都能参与起来。
今年夏前，联合国开发计划署进化代表处发起人他书者未来，创造意义。
旨在为12至18岁的女孩，特别是乡村地区的女孩们 提供学习数字化技能的机会，并探索如何得以自用，通过数字赋能，给自己的家乡和社会带来切实的改变。
为弥合数字鸿沟，我们在全中国招募志愿者。短短的3个月内，近100名志愿者已在中国落地了20余个线下创造营。30多个团队提交了他们的科技促进可持续发展的创新方案。我们为志愿者提供的学习支持工具和数字化平台课程，已支持超过400位女孩参与学习 STEM 相关内容，开源课程浏览量超过9万。
男女同学都有学好理科的能力，也有学好文科的能力。
了解了可持续发展目标是什么，然后怎么做编程，然后怎么做 PPT。
女孩和科技
终于改变世界的无限可能。
喜欢物理，然后咱们第一反应就是女孩子学什么物理啊？
我们说啊，男性的成功与他的事业来衡量，女性的成功与他家庭来衡量。女孩们，你们同意这个说法吗？
有女生问我，科学家到底长什么样子？是不是总是穿着白大褂，戴着眼镜，一头短发，一脸严肃？在我的身边有很多硬核的女科学家。他们有卷发，有长发，有染过色的科学家们，没有固定的一张脸。
在农村教书，坚信只要努力，我和我的学生就一定能走进科学的殿堂，领略科学的魅力。
咱们已经被实验室挑战越战，在工厂工人一起反思，撰写学术论文，对人一些新的，但更是快乐和充满意义。
我的身边有很多拥有很强适应能力的女性科研工作者。
很多困难不是只有女孩子会遇到，也不是只有男孩子能做。
最重要的品质，那就是坚持，任何事情我们都绝不放弃。
我们现代女性在可持续发展中都将起到决定性的作用。
而且女性的很多可能在很多方面支持。
科学研究需要更全面和更真实的结果。而女性独有的视角可以让研究是更加全面。
科学是不分性别的，只要你有兴趣，你也可以成为一名科学家。像我们这样的女性科研工作者越来越多，才能够发出更大的声音，能够更好的发挥这种她力量。
梦想不因性别设限，
勇敢的追求自己做科研的梦想。
有梦想就去实现。
科学吧，女孩；
科学吧，女孩。
让科技避免差，
支持更多女性参与科学，
支持更多女性参与科学，
期待着更多女性参与科研，
支持更多的女性加入到科学研究的领域中来。
我更好实现自己的梦想。
他们对这个世界有着无限的好奇。
我家庭是不健康。我爷爷不舍得开空调，影响水下生物。
女孩们提出的这一个个问题，是对未来的探索，也是世界目前面临的挑战。当科技遇见它，会发生怎样的奇妙反应？
我们需要让教育走出校园，保持教育的趣味性。
在城市的最后，主要让居民体现了各种垃圾包含的种类，让居民对垃圾分类加了清晰。
用心理限制、限制和公开赛事帮助投资人进行社交活动和提高参与。
由于牧民直售牛羊的收入比较低，所以我们想网络上售卖自己的特色产品，来帮助牧民提高收入。
少女的眼中可容纳下很大通过我们的努力，能让每一个女孩子都能做到这样。希望世界各地的老师们都能参与起来。
今年夏前，联合国开发计划署主发代表处发起了他数字未来创造营，
旨在为12至18岁的女孩，特别是乡村地区的女孩们提供学习数字化技能的机会，并探索如何得以自用，通过数字赋能，给自己的家乡和社会带来切实的改变。
为弥合数字鸿沟，我们在全中国招募志愿者，短短的3个月内，近100名志愿者已在。
各位欢迎回来我们的讨论现场，在茶歇的各位朋友也可以回到我们的现场来一起参加。So everybody, you are welcome to come back for our next panel discussion. 我们还有很多线上正在收看这一个讨论的朋友们，也非常感谢。好，谢谢。Next, let's move on to panel 3 of today, which is about cultivating the future generation of scientific and technological innovation talents. 刚才呢，我们大家都在讲到，现在已经从事科学和技术工作的女性，如何在她们自己所从事的范围之内得到更好的发展，而从大的社会背景又如何打造更加适合的政策来适应，并且呢，鼓励女性在科技领域的发展。那接下来呢，我们要讨论的是有关教育和女性在最初起步时候的一些重要的话题啊。So I'm very honored to introduce to the stage, first of all, the one in person, Elena Berges, who is the attaché for science and technology from the French Embassy in China. Good to see you, Elena. Thank you so much for joining us. Please have a seat. And then, 我们同时呢还有多位在线上参加的嘉宾和我们一起来进行讨论。Sana Karavani, who is a professor of practice with the Department of Informatics, with the King's College London. She is online. Can you hear us, Sana?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Good to see you. You're looking very fresh. It's a good morning, I can tell. Thank you so much.
It is. It's morning for me, afternoon for you. So thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Thank you. Thank you. And Wang Haiyan, Senior Education Specialist with UNICEF in China, who's also online. Haiyan, how are you?
主持人好，现场的观众好，可以听到吧？
可以听到，非常感谢你来参与我们今天的活动，一起参加讨论，谢谢你。杨科 ，Associate Researcher with the Institute of Sociology with Chinese Academy of Social Sciences。科 ，Can you hear me？
能听到吗？主持人好，现场
谢谢你，谢谢你。好，last but not least， 陈丹 CEO of 1kg Box。陈丹可以听见吗？丹你好
，Hello， 很高兴参加这次讨论。
哦，太棒了，非常感谢各位，我们感谢我们的这个支持团队啊，把大家的连线都做得非常的精准。好，下面我们就进行今天的讨论。So, I think there are so much things that we haven't touched on in our discussions, even though we all have the same aspirations. One of the things is early education and also the early development of the career starting from education. So, Elena, you and I were having a great time during the coffee break. Yes, we don't want to even come back, but we thought we're going to talk again. So it's wonderful to be back on the stage at the same time. But, you know, one of the things is, what about this period of time during education? What is lacking? What is needed from your perspective, please?
Okay, so thank you very much. Indeed, we were enjoying discussing again about women, the place of women in science, especially. Like we heard before, you know, there are a lot of bias for sure, and this is also a matter of social, you know, reference. But like you say, it started very early, actually, and we need to empower and to encourage early engagement. So in France, in particular, we have different initiatives, like, for example, La Main à la Pâte, to encourage, you know, at very, you know, young ages, boys and girls to embrace scientific careers. So this is key. This is key to have this in mind for young people, and whatever, you know, the gender you are, okay? And this is key. As soon as they are, you know, being able at young ages to work together, girls and boys, work together with scientific projects, they will know, you know, the benefit of, you know, working together. they will know the importance of having this diversity in science. To work together, because there is a diversity and we need to think as an ecosystem. Ecosystem, especially with climate changes, we know that it is important to think to have an ecosystemic approach.
Right.
And this is the same for the representation of men and women. So there is a diversity in gender, but there is a diversity in girls and in boys.
Wonderful.
And it's not a
question. I think we just do very quickly the very first question. And also because I want to have a quick intro of every one of you, maybe it's easier to know your opinions first. Now we already know, which is two things. Do things together, first of all. And secondly, establish the right ecosystem.
Exactly.
Now, tell me why you think these two are important, because you are working on the Science and Technology Department from the embassy. Describe your work for us, maybe a few sentences also.
Yeah, so perhaps I will describe my career actually, because I joined the French embassy last year only. Before that, you know, I am a scientist. Since I am younger, I know that I can do whatever I want. I don't know why, but whatever, you know, it's possible. So I decided to be a scientist since a young age. I have some representation. Yes, in France we have Marie Curie. We are working on the same domain like I am working on. We have also Claudie Henneret, an astronaut. So that's very important. You know, you can go to the moon, you can work whatever you want.
Right.
So that's
you're
important.
A scientist in which area?
And so I am a molecular geneticist. I have a PhD in molecular biology. And I became a genomicist. Genomicist, it means that show me your DNA, I will tell you who you are. Actually, this is, you know, what we have inside. So I was the director of a laboratory in France for more than 15 years.
Congratulations.
And then I joined a biotech company in Boston, working on, you know, all this new technology, combining molecular and innovative approaches and AI. And I had the opportunity to work with very smart women at that moment.
Great.
And, you know, Jennifer Doudna, who received the Nobel Prize on the same technology.
I had the chance to talk to her, by the way.
Great.
Right on the year when she received the prize. But welcome, Miss DNA.
Yeah, great. You understood perfectly.
All right. Let me go to also Sana about your general opinions regarding this topic and where are you coming from? Sana, please.
So thank you very much. Thank you. My general feeling about this topic is that we need to, as a world, work harder to make sure that there is better representation in technology. And I think we have in front of us an opportunity with artificial intelligence because it is so context-based. And so the relevant experiences and expertise that people bring from different walks of life make such an impact in this area of technology that we have in front of us an opportunity to finally start to make a big movement and have more women and more cultural representation in STEM subjects, especially when it comes to AI. So that's my one thing, which is we have an opportunity to make a difference. And the second is this is the responsibility of all of us. So everyone from the children themselves and the students themselves, the parents, and also the kind of policies that we have from a governmental perspective in these countries. It is the responsibility of all of us to make this happen. If we want to have these technologies representing all of us, we need the people creating them and the people creating these applications to also represent all of us. And so we have an opportunity and the responsibilities with all of us. Those are my 2 points.
Right. Thank you so much. But Sana, tell me more about where you're coming from. You know, why are you so passionate about what we are talking about today? Namely, an introduction about yourself, academically speaking.
Of course. So much like the previous speaker, I have also been in technology all my life. I have a maths and computer science degree. I started off as a software developer and coder. I worked in small company startups. I've also worked in big tech companies. I have an MBA as well from MIT. So I went from being a technologist into business and worked as a strategy management consultant for a number of years, working for Fortune 100 companies across the world, helping them solve some of their big challenges, and seeing firsthand the role that technology plays in solving some of these challenges. I've also had the fortunate experience to work in government as well. So up until last year, I started set up and then headed up the UK government's Office for Artificial Intelligence. And it was under my leadership that we published the UK's national AI strategy and drafted the UK's AI regulation white paper. And so, and that's that. So I have an experience that kind of spans technology, industry, and policy. And I have always been passionate about getting more women involved across the board on all of these. And all of them, for anyone who's been through it, and I know there's a few people sitting here who have, are very male dominated. And yet I have always come and made some disruption.
Go on, my sister. Okay, that would be wonderful. So what you're saying, Sana, actually are very clear points. One is that we are having this great momentum right now. Let's quote unquote take advantage of it to bring more gender equity and certainly support women, capable women in the field. Secondly, you are saying everybody has a role to play. And everybody can contribute. I think that's very true. It's not just a slogan, but rather we can work on that every day. So thank you so much for that inspiration. And then we know your background. We are going to go further, more in detail about AI technologies and also how information technology is likely to bring more momentum to women's participation. And it's a necessity. Thank you. Let's go to next, Hai Yan. Please, Hai Yan, tell us briefly your thoughts on the topic and why you are here. What about, your background? Please.
Okay, I just wonder whether I do speak English or Chinese, or call me Echo is fine. Maybe I just speak in Chinese, given I guess most of the audience are actually Chinese. 我就简单的说一下吧。我是来自于联合国儿童基金会驻华办事处的高级教育官员，我叫王海燕，或者叫我 Echo 也行。先说一下我自己的背景吧。我自己差不多20来年的这个职业生涯，基本上都是在教育领域。之前是在英国大使馆的文化教育处，然后促进中英的教育交流。那么最近2年是加入了联合国儿童基金会，我的团队主要是负责青少年的这个教育与技能。那么这个 STEM 是我们非常重要的一个工作领域。那我自己的教育背景呢，我自己实际是学法律的，但是没有从事过法律这个职业。之后呢，也是在英国念的这个社会政策与发展，所以广义上来说，教育是我比较关注的一个这个政策领域。那么回到刚才我们主持人问的这个问题哈，就是为什么我们关注这个领域？那么这个 STEM 这个学科或者说整个科技发展对这个世界经济也好，对我们完成这个可持续发展也好，对孩子的这个个人的这个身心或者说他的这个职业发展也好，它的重要性是不言而喻的。那么虽然是这么说，但是这个女性科学家的这个少数性哈，这个在全球都是一个共同的一个挑战吧，或者一个现象。那么放到中国这样一个环境，大家也知道，中国的教育，包括这个教育的这个公平也好，或者说教育的这个质量也好，其实是做得非常不错的，尤其在基础教育这个阶段。那么女生的这个比例从这个基础教育一直到高等教育，其实都是不管是从质量上或者说从数量上，其实女生都是占比的。那我们就要问这个问题了，为什么女孩子她虽然学业表现也很优秀，她的教育机会也一点不差，那为什么女孩子还是不会选择这个从事这个科技领域的这个工作？为什么她没有选择成为一个科学家？对，所以这个问题我觉得是一个大家共同在关注的一个问题。
谢谢海燕。So Hai Yan actually not only introduced herself, but rather raised a great question. We are looking forward to her answers because I know women are very good at asking questions and answering them all at the same time as well. So compliment, by the way. Thank you so much, Hai Yan. Let's go to Ke. 杨可你好，请您也请您介绍一下自己，然后与此同时特别要跟我们说一下为什么您对这个话题如此感兴趣。如果您有你的想法，请您简单给我们叙述一下，之后我们再通过不同的话题再进入到深入的讨论。请您先简单介绍，谢谢。
主持人好，我是来自于中国社会科学院社会学研究所的，其实呢，我一直都是学文科，我的本科是学中文，然后我的硕士和博士都是学社会学，但是呢，其实我来自于一个数学家的家庭，然后我的那个父亲是专门学数学。我为什么中途没有学下去数学呢？这就成为了一个 puzzle， 我自己也想慢慢的搞明白这一切啊。然后呢，后来我学了社会学之后，要不免接触很多定量研究，那么要从没有学过定量研究的一个背景里面啊，慢慢的去push 自己去学懂它，理解它，要感到慢慢的鼓励自己就是在任何一个时点都可以融入这种学习，要不害怕这些向这些科技领域去努力。所以呢，我也感觉我也是从自己的这个经历当中吧，有了一些这种体会啊。然后现在呢，我也逐渐在学习很多的社会科学的这种融合定量定性的这些研究方法，所以也通过这些访谈，通过和这些非常年轻我最近在做一个社科院社会学所以及就是我们社科院那个妇女中心的一个课题，通过和非常年轻的这些新一辈的女大学生的这些理工科女大学生的交流，也有很多体会哈。我待会儿会具体的谈我觉得也就是结成一个女性的同盟是一个非常重要的事情，而且就是打破那种成见，就是特定的领域属于特定的性别这种成见，对于每一个女性的成长，或者说对于每一个人的成长男性也是一样都是非常重要的所以我简单分享这些。
Thank you very much. You know, I have a lot of empathy towards what you said. 可以听得到啊。我觉得我有好多同理心啊，您刚才讲的一切，因为我也是一个叫做什么liberal arts
你投入对呀对呀，你为什么会投入那么多呢？我主要
不好意思，请问是哪一位的声音？好，对，谢谢。其实呢，作为一个文科生呢，会觉得有关科技的话题离我们稍微有点远，而且会有一种似乎天然的这种抵触情绪，就是在我们的学科和这些学科之间有跨界的时候。但是呢，确实只要我们走出了第一步第二步和第三步就会非常自然。所以您的例子呢，对我来说也是一个鼓励，我想对很多人来说也是一个鼓励哈。But what you said very interesting about networking, especially with the younger generation of female scientists, about and also the growing number of STEM female students to see their needs, and also how can we break the barriers ourselves from our own academic background. So I think that's very enticing. Thank you so much. 接下来我们还会进一步讨论，谢谢你啊，谢谢柯。Let's go to Dan. 陈丹，你好，中文还是英文都可以。
好，谢谢主持人。大家好，我是陈丹，我是来自就是中国本土的一个公益机构，叫一公斤盒子。
对不起，陈丹，你的背景是不是好？旁边还有很多人在讲话。
对对对，我可能顺便这个时候可以稍微把声音调小一点吗？
谢谢，因为他的声音有的时候会比您的声音更高，所以可能会听起来稍微费点劲。现在好多了，
好，谢谢。
讲话。
好，我是来自一公斤盒子，是一家本土的教育公益的组织。那我们一直是致力于去推动一些相对困境的孩子，包括乡村儿童和城市的流动儿童去可能去改善这种教育公平的这样的一些情况。所以其实我跟海燕老师，我们是有一些共同的工作的领域和背景。那其实为什么会对这个议题感兴趣我觉得其实一方面当然是我们机构本身的这样的一些使命跟愿景。其实我们会看到这种 这种性别的这样的一些比如说一些标签或者是一些偏见的影响，其实在这种县以下的这种县乡镇这样的一些区域呢，其实对女孩的那个影响是会更大的。但另一方面呢，其实我自己个人的成长也是一个这样非常非常典型的例子因为我是出生在一个乡村。然后我的中学呢是在一个县级的中学去成长。那其实我从小学3年级开始呢，就拿了我们整个县的数学竞赛的第1名但是从我的小学3年级一直到我高3即使我到最后高考的时候呢，我考入了国内非常好的这样的一个理工科的学校，但是我身边的所有的成年人，包括我的老师，也包括身边的亲友，就会一直跟我说，女孩就从3年级开始，从我一直拿奖，一直拿第1开始，就会一直告诉我说，女孩现在成绩可以，但是未来她的成绩就会掉下去，并且会安慰我的同伴，就是那些失败的男生，没有考赢我的男生说，男孩子没有关系的，后面你会赶上来。所以其实我觉得我自己整个的成长历程，其实就非常代表在那个区域下，就是在县的学校，在乡镇的学校的女孩，她们共同的这样的一个经历所以除了我机构本身的愿景之外，其实我个人的这样的一个经历，让我更加的去感受到其实在这种就是在一些困境的这种女孩当中去推动这种这种就是改变性别偏见的重要性。谢谢。
So wonderful to know where you are doing, where your heart is. 真的很高兴知道你在做你心里向往的一件事情，这就是在基层，在 you are doing it at the grassroots level, which is you consider as extremely important to level the playing field and also to change the stereotypes. Thank you so much. We're going to go into that as well in our later discussion. 我们一会儿呢，在讨论当中呢，也会谈到如何从这个社会的文化和整个的这个社会的影响方面，在改变我们目前的这样一个状况我说的不光是哪一个具体的社会，而是众多社会，实际现在我们都面临着这样的一些改变的挑战。谢谢你So we have collected a lot of questions coming from these smart ladies. For example, the grassroots. In AI and new technology, what does that mean for women in science, especially when they are working with the education? And as well as what might be some of the inspirations we can get for one another as we try to figure out our own ways to deal with it. 所以我们现在可以1对1的，就可以说一个接一个的把这些问题呢做一个很好的回答。First, about AI and new technologies. We all know this is going to transform our world. And who is lagging behind right now going to be really lagged behind later. So this is so crucial that we know we are not leaving anyone behind, especially the women. Now, Elena, tell me more about what you consider is important into the educational system, but not only to that, limited to that, to our life, our family, so that girls start from the very beginning will be empowered by the same kind of quality of knowledge and information as the other genders.
Yeah, so I think it's important. We heard that also from one of the previous speakers. We know that around 90% of the new jobs will require all this, a new technology, AI, STEAM, whatever. Okay, so this require very strong foundation in all these. I would say that first that empowering this younger generation is key for the future, that for sure. And this require a combination of technical skills and soft skills too. Because we are talking about AI, and AI is artificial intelligence, but artificial, it means that it comes from some intelligence and it comes from human intelligence, actually, and it's not starting from nowhere. So these require really strong foundation in math, in statistics, to understand, the models, the algorithm, okay, and to build them. but it also requires to embrace the diversity, like I said before, okay? Because this intelligence is algorithm, they need to take into account the diversity, okay? And diversity of the intelligences. And we can see already some bias in ChatGPT, for example, okay? Because you feed, you know, this algorithm with data. So if you don't input, you know, this data from, you know, the way of thinking from the diversity of women, I think this will, this won't, you know, fit our needs, okay? And the diversity of our needs, of our societies, need to embrace this, you know, women's vision, different perspective to build this new AI.
Can you give us an example, for example?
For example, in the data, we were talking about, you know, women in science. Okay, if you ask what are the women in science, for example, ChatGPT will only bring you what is available in the data. If you don't feed the data with all the women who significantly, you know, made a strong, you know, impact on science, you won't have the answer. Okay, so it's an obvious example, but this will be the same for all the AI that we will build if we don't put the diversity and if we don't have this. We also have to embrace the new perspective in terms of AI requires, you know, ethical vision also. So this is key to have, you know, to take that into account and to not only, you know, the technical foundation, but these other skills.
Have you seen some encouraging examples? Can you have one or two for us as well? How people are solving these problems?
I don't know if they are already solving, okay? I think they are discussing about how to solve that, at least. I think
too late already.
I would say that for, you know, for some, yes, because, you know, the technology per se, it's moving
really
faster,
yeah.
Okay? And we didn't think about all these, you know, ethical issues at the very beginning when we were starting, you know, implementing that, because, you know, we didn't expect, you know, this evolution, this very, you know, rapid evolution. And talking about evolution, actually embracing this new technology requires also adaptability of this young generation. So you need also to teach them that, because it's evolving at very, you know, high speed. Okay, so we need that. We need also people to be capable of doing that or being adaptive in this evolution.
Does women have an advantage in that, in the adaptation and the?
I was coming to that.
Okay,
great. We are in the same, you know, and exactly. I think that we can take, you know, that advantage because, like we were discussing, when we were born, we know that we are not equal, okay, because we are women, okay? We need to face much more challenges. Whatever the position you have as a woman, you have, you know, fight much more challenges than a man at the same position. This is true. This is the reality. So we know how to fight. We have this capability to adapt and to evolve. So this is key for me. But first, I think we need to really take into account the fact that we women, girls at young age or a later age, we have the same capability. But I think that we are not expecting the same for women. That's why, you know, they are not taking also this path in science. So we need to expect more. We need to tell young girls that, yeah, we are expecting more for you. And they have to be, you know, very empowered at young age, I think. So this.
Thank you so much. Sana, go to you on the same question. With AI and information technology developing digitalization so fast, is it an opportunity or is it a challenge when we are talking about cultivating future generations of scientific and technological innovation talents among women?
May I answer that? May I answer that by saying that it's both. It's an opportunity and a challenge. And it's a challenge we should take on with both hands so that we can reap the benefits and the opportunities that will come out the other side. I should also, I forgot to mention that I'm here today representing Technovation, which is an organization that looks at empowering girls and women from underrepresented countries and countries but not just underrepresented countries. We're in every country looking at bringing more women and more girls into STEM. So this organization is a nonprofit organization, and I sit on their board. And the entire reason for Technovation's existence is to address this challenge. And some of the work that they've done shows that that by linking technology to real world impact, then you get a lot more girls interested. As women, we tend to care about the impact of what we do. What drives us is making real world impact. So for example, the Sustainable Development Goals. And so looking at, to answer your question about, what are the kind of things we need to do to empower these girls, looking at complex systems. So teaching them about systems thinking and nurturing the creativity that girls have innately inside them, understanding human behavior, so empathy, ethics, design. These are all incredibly important. So, and women tend to be very collaborative creatures. So we like to work in teams. So this isn't anything to say that men don't, but these are all things that we can really use in favor. So making sure we are doubling down on the empathetic nature that girls have, their active listening skills, their ability to manage conflict and share problem solving. And then moving down the path into self-awareness. So how do you plan? How do you monitor? How do you evaluate? How do you do these things? How do you manage your time? Which ends up being very similar to what we would like all children and all students to be able to do. And then you move down again into problem solving. So how do you iterate? How do you create a minimum viable product? But the point we're making here, and then obviously we then move into building the technology, right? And Technovation has a mentorship model where it puts the students, the girls in a mentorship with others who've been there. And some of these mentors are men and some are women. And I think, being able to see your own image in someone who has succeeded before you and is incredible to give you the confidence that you can do it too. And because of the work that Technovation has been doing over the decades, the mentors that we have are, a lot of them are previous alumni of the program. And these are people who look like you, come from the same cultural background as you, and have broken down the barriers, and they can show that this program works. And so that goes such a long way in inspiring the younger generation to get involved. So, and then you get down into the technical, right? But it's the point of this is, with girls, you have to start from the top of that pyramid. You have to talk about what is the complex system, what is the impact of the work that you're going to make, and then the human behavior, then the collaboration and self-awareness, and then the problem solving, and then finally the actual hands-on code, right? Because we've seen data shows us that starting from the bottom doesn't inspire girls. Not everybody loves starts off loving maths. I had the fortunate I was in a fortunate position that my dad spent a lot of time, my father spent a lot of time with me, showing me why math was so beautiful. And when you're shown that at a young age, it impacts you. I think that I will just end on there to say the important role that parents play in this, in the future choices of their children, whether you start at the top of the pyramid or the bottom, the impact that your support network makes in mentoring you and helping show you that you can, like some of the ladies and the women on this panel have already said, to be fearless and to go after your dreams. And whether you do that because you love technology already and you want to get into it, or because you want to make impact, whichever side of that pyramid you start on, the mentorship that's provided and the support that's provided by your family and those around you makes a huge difference.
Right. Thank you very much. I think all of these information are very crucial, and you give me Sana, a great opportunity to complain to my dad why my math is not good enough. Thank you. We have another topic for dinner table today. But anyway, having said that though, could you help us, Sana, before we finish the discussion of this topic about policy-wise, because you earlier mentioned about the white paper and many other policy-related documents toward artificial intelligence. Now, what Elena talked about is a real problem we are seeing already happening, and it's having tremendous impact. One of those is algorithm. During the process of designing, there is very much lack of input coming from different genders. And therefore, the results and the impact they are having on our society is already taking place. You know, it's already quite clear. For example, some of the gender bias and many other things. So when you are working on the policies, what was that discussion like between you and your colleagues? Because I'm not saying the results, you know, the results is still evolving. What about that process like of discussion? Tell us more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I might start by just saying it's not too late. It's not like we can't affect change anymore, and these technologies have taken over and there's no going back. We as humans, as people, are still in charge, and being aware that of the importance of diversity, both in kind of gender, but also in orientation, in culture, in thought, and the importance of that, being aware of that is also very important, and means that we can now start moving in the right direction, and create and make sure that these tools that we create are useful and representative. So from a policy perspective, so just to put that kind of out there, it's not too late, right? But from a policy perspective, I think it's important to think about AI technologies and their bias. So algorithms themselves aren't inherently biased. They basically hold a mirror up to who we are as humans, right? And there are two ways that this bias happens. One is in the data, which was pointed out earlier. So we need that data to be representative, which means that we need to make sure all parts of the world are encouraged and also digitizing their data, so that when these algorithms go out and find that data, it is representative of the world we live in, rather than just the Western world or parts of the East or whatever, that they're representative of the whole world. So the data is really important. There's lots of work being done on this, not to say this is by any means finished or complete, but there is lots of work being done on this. The second area that makes algorithms bias or introduces bias is human bias, right? So if my learning and my understanding of the world is affected by where I've grown up, the culture that I've grown up in, where I've studied, the professors that I've learned under, all of those things affect how I understand and how I see the world. And that inherent bias that is inside the people developing these algorithms also manifests itself into the bias that we might see in an application, which is why it's so important that programs like Technovation and others that people on this panel have described, and in fact, the whole work that UNDP and UNICEF are doing around these issues is so relevant and so important. That diversity of thought, that making sure that the doors aren't closed to different walks of life and different kinds of people, and that we're not leaving voices unheard in this, is really, really important. And so that's why this work is important, right? So those are your two places. I just want to finish off by saying one more thing. We've lost your video.
I think we lost Sana. Well, she has a last point to make. We'll save that last point for the last, maybe, yeah. But what Sana earlier have pointed out really lead us to the next round of discussion as we designed already. I think Sana will come back once she's already seen us. So,
I'm so sorry. Was that me? I don't know. I lost everyone for a moment.
Well, you're popping up again. So wonderful. You said you have one final point. Please make it.
Sorry, my one final point. Now let's see if I can remember what it was.
You know,
You'll have
before
to
that
come back.
happens, Anna, I already said we're going to save the best for
I
the
lost
last.
my
So you
train of
save your
thought.
best point for the
I
last.
lost my train of thought. So I won't take up time. You can come back to me later and we can talk.
Save the best point for the last point. Okay, later. Okay. Thank you so much, Sana. So let me go to the next round of discussion, because Sana and Elena has already set a great stage for us with the example of artificial intelligence and information technology. But that is only part of the discussion, isn't it? That how women are going to play a role in science and technology. But now we need to ask the question the other way around, how women can have access to science and technology when they're growing up. Be enriched and nurtured by that field as they grow up. So I guess on that, I go to our educators representative, Hai Yan. You earlier mentioned this is something you're very passionate about. So tell us more about what you have discovered. 我们说到这个 STEM education STEM 教育这个关于科技、关于数理化等等这些方面的话题呢，大家有所讨论。比如说，女孩和男孩是不是在他们长大的过程当中都有同样的教育机会？他们都会同样的理解这些学科对他们的重要性？社会上是不是有给到他们同样重要的？不存在偏见的信息以及呢，他们如何利用这些所有的机会所以我想请海燕来讲一讲你的想法。
好的，谢谢主持人。刚才桑娜在说的时候，其实我有非常多的共鸣。他提到很多关于科学家培养的这个路径，其实适用到教育也是一样的。比如说，他谈到这个榜样的力量，也就是说，孩子们在他成长的过程要看到榜样，他可以是什么样的。那么，这个对很多孩子来说，它是一个灵感，或者它是一个看到可能性的这样一个过程。这个是为什么在教育中我们非常强调这个榜样或者女性导师的这个作用。那么，但是回到教育本身，因为我们教育离这个我们未来的这个科技创新人才，它是一个起点，所以我们还是在做一些基础性的工作。那么在这个过程当中呢，其实我这边想说一下 ，Andreas 大概9月份在世界科学素质大会上有提到说，中国的孩子其实是科学包括数学的学业表现是非常优秀的，在世界上是领先的。但是回到孩子们要从事这个科学研究或者长大要做科学家的这个意愿或者兴趣其实是不大的。那么这个也问了一个问题，是为什么我们孩子学得很好，但是他没有兴趣呢？所以就说我们在这个基础的这个教育的这个阶段，包括我们这个 STEM 教育，其实很大时候不是要他解决一个特别复杂高难度的这样一个科学知识，更多的是培养一个对科学的这样的一个兴趣，或者他的一个探究的这样的一个这样的一个思维习惯吧。所以这个也是为什么我们从这个机会角度就会说，我们做很多工作，我们不强求这个知识本身的这个复杂性或者这个难度，我们更强调的是一个科学兴趣的一个培养。所以我们很强调的几个 key messages 吧，就是科学是有趣的，科学是可及的，你的身边其实时时刻刻都在发生的一些有趣的科学现象。那么科学也是很酷的，那么对孩子来说，做科学家其实是长大以后很酷的一件事儿。那么这个是说我们从教育的角度，我们优先考虑的是培养这个科学的兴趣。那么在这个过程当中，大家有提到说，那么女生男生他的这个机会是不是一样呢？那这个东西它是要看国情是不一样哈。待会如果有机会我可以展开说。那么从这个教育或者整体来说，比如说不同的国家它在不同的阶段，刚才我有说到中国其实情况非常好的，我们的女性就业率或者我们的女性获得这个知识技能甚至这个科技能力在世界上都是名列前茅的。那么问题是说我们怎么样把这些转化为优势，那么孩子从小他从优势角度来看自己，而不是从劣势。刚才我们几位老师也提到，孩子很小，女孩子就会被教育说你的家庭观念也好，或者你将来的成长以后的社会角色是这样的，所以你对自己的未来要有这样的定位。那么这个也是一个就是我们很多孩子，女孩子她在从小，我们刚才说，孩子其实在3到5岁就已经开始形成一个初步的这样的一个性别意识了。那么这个家庭教育其实是非常关键的。刚才我们也提到说，爸爸回去可能要负一部分责任哈，就是这个从小的这样的一个 自己的一个性别的这样的一个意识跟定位是非常重要的。那么从我们的角度，就是女孩子要有个优势视角，不是个劣势视角，关注于我的优势在哪里，而不是关注我的劣势在哪里。那么这个又回到一个更广义的问题，就是我们到底培养孩子什么样的一个能力？科学知识、技能、态度，它固然重要，但是这个是在孩子整体发展中间的一个环节或者一门知识而已。其实影响一个孩子他未来的这样的职业成就、学业成就以及他的这个社会这个贡献，其实更多的是来自孩子的一些可迁移能力。我们也叫这个核心能力，孩子他的自信心怎么样，他对自我认知怎么样，他怎么看待自己跟他人、跟社会、跟集体的一个关系，以及在这个过程当中，孩子体现出来的一个问题解决能力啊，或者说他的是一个思辨的这样的一个能力，或者说他是一个与他人同理啊、共情啊、跟合作的这个能力。所以在我们看来，科学如果要培养未来的科学家，解决科学的这个知识的掌握是一部分，但更重要的是在一个教育的大背景下，我们要培养孩子成为什么样的人，他有什么样的核心能力，这些核心能力会支撑他把他的科学知识是怎么来看、怎么用，以及他将来怎么样折射到他自己的一个职业选择。所以我这边强调的几个点，一个就是关于榜样的力量，一个是关于教育本身它应该是有趣的，是一个可及的。那么还有就是把这个科学教育它是放在一个人的一个全人发展，包括他的核心能力来发展，这样才会打造成或者说培养出一个真正的这样的一个有同理心、有这个世界情怀，或者说有这样的一个贡献的这样的一个孩子的这样的一个未来。
好，谢谢，讲得非常清楚，谢谢海燕。而且我觉得您讲的很多的道理呢，其实是有所感知的，但是我们要把它们真正明确的表达出来，非常关键的。谢谢您。杨可老师，我猜你有不同看法吗？还是都是一样的想法？没有吗？没有，咱们怎么讨论呀？请你有点不同想法。没有，开玩笑了啊。
海燕老师说的很多我都认同，就是我在
杨老师看看您的通过您的研究有什么新的发现，有请杨老师。
就是刚才Sana包括海燕老师提到的很多地方，我都在记笔记啊，就很认同。刚才海燕老师也提到这个效能感的问题我确实通过我的这个研究吧我觉得就是从效能感就可以入手来说，其实可能那个不仅男性和女性男生和女生，年轻的男孩女孩其实就在女性当中，其实也是一个女性不是一个同质化的群体，她们不同的这个家庭背景、不同的成长环境，对吧？不同的求学轨迹，她们的效能感是不一样的。那么其实我们可能应该从我的这个一个就是课题的调研来看覆盖了全国6个高校40多位同学的一个深入的一个访谈从他们的反应来看实际上可能相比就是20-30年前吧，我们整体的这个同学的他的面临的女同学面临的这个歧视，明显的歧视是在减少的他们非常知道，就是学好这个无论是学好文科还是理科吧，就是一个优异的学业表现对自己的未来是非常有利的所以即便是在那个穷乡僻壤，他们也会非常关注，包括老师也会非常关注自己的学习，包括家庭也是，只要这个孩子不管男孩女孩表现出这个数理化就是这些理科的这个学习的潜力在很大程度上还是都会支持的但是这是一个进步，但是呢也发现他们确实不同的孩子，不同的背景的孩子，他们还是会有一些自我效能感上的也是一个重要的差异点他们可能有些人呢，他们就能力很好那么他们对自己也更有信心，那么环境也就更相对来说也就顺风顺水，就更为支持他。那么这些孩子呢，他们可能就是在进入到一个理工科的学习的时候，可能破冰的这个能力就是逆境往上走，他们都会更顺利一些那么另外的一些孩子呢，可能相对来说小时候没有得到那么多的，就像王老师说的这个优势视角的看待自己他们没有得到那么多正面的反馈，学习就是简单来说，他们的数理化能力可能没有那么强，然后他们可能就容易被那种能力性别刻板印象来捕获就被捕获了之后，怀疑这些领域是不是女性可以擅长的领域。同时如果他们 身边没有特别多的女性榜样，可以让有一些替代的经验可以迁移给他们啊，可能他们就不能够那么好的建立起这种自信心去往前走，尤其是假如说又处在一个专业性别少数的一个背景下，比如学习到一个工科，有在某些学校某些领域可能那个性别比例是非常悬殊的哈，那它可能会产生一种就是外人陌生感啊，就是那种我不属于这儿这种感受的话，那它可能会影响他往前走哈。所以我觉得总的来说吧，我做了这个课题的这个调研呢，一个是感觉到确实整体情况有很大的进步啊，另外呢，可能就是所有的女学生她们这个人群的这个情况需要细分来讨论啊，需要根据他们所处的背景，他们自己感到的这个困难所在啊，来去因材施教吧。对于那些能力很强的孩子呢，可能更多的是给他们提供这种竞争性的环境，给他们很多实践的可以去锻炼自己的这些机会啊，就是也不需要就是特别特别怎样就往前走就好了。另外一些孩子呢，可能就更多性别刻板印象啊，然后更多的去那个鼓励他们的信心，接触一些女性榜样，然后扩大自己的这个网络啊，然后去在这个支持性的环境下往前走。这是我的一个初步的一个想法。
谢谢杨老师。其实你给到了我们一个很好的方法论啊，这就是说，我们不要把任何一个话题在谈论女性的时候，似乎每一个人都是相同的，而是这里面呢有非常多的不同，他们的各自的背景都会给他们带来不同的需求、不同的挑战以及不同的解决方案啊，就像我们男性或者是任何其他的性别一样啊。谢谢您 ，Thank you so much 啊。接下来呢，说到这个不同的背景啊，可能陈丹老师就能够给我们提供更好的一些注解啊。比如说你在农村教育创新方面，刚才你也提到了做了很多的投入啊，个人的这种情感的投入，个人的成长的经历的投入，所以也请教你呢，在这个有关 STEM education 啊，有关这个数理化呀、科学呀这方面的教育。和女孩子的成长过程当中，你觉得现在是一种什么样的状况？当然过去呢，比如说20年前，中国还有非常多的贫困地区。现在整体来讲呢，关于这个极度贫困，我们已经达到了这个摆脱了这个极度贫困。但是呢，确实呢，其中有一些在发展过程当中还会出现新的挑战。所以请教您，在什么是最新的这样一个状况啊？然后在你工作到一些具体的项目的时候，你发现了什么啊？谢谢。
非常棒的问题哈，就是我很开心由这个问题可以引出我和我的伙伴们，就是因为在中国，包括像海燕老师这样就是国际 NGO， 还有像我们这样的本土的教育公益的 NGO， 其实在确实在这10几年，我自己在这个领域工作了17年。那实际上这个领域大概会也有20多年的历史，确实在我觉得在最近的5年来说，其实我们面对的问题和过去的10几年是完全不一样的当然，我觉得简短的来说，就是在过去的10几年当中，其实我们更多的致力于叫做有学上。就是我们可能让更多的乡村孩子，他有足够的学校，然后老师，然后呢他能够去享受到基本的这个9年制的义务教育那我自己在就是最近也在看2021年的这个教育白皮书，那实际上在这个部分就是9年义务教育普及的这个部分，其实我们确实已经有非常非常好的这样一个成果了。所以其实，在最近的我们应该是在17年的中国，我们有一个教育公益的一个。算是我们的一个叫做双年会吧，就是非常重要也最大规模的这样的我们本土 NGO 的年会上，其实我们提出了一个新的主张，就是可能从这个节点开始，我们未来的工作的重点要从有学上到上好学所以其实我也非常清晰的看到这5年可能我的大部分的同行，我们的重点都开始转向这个部分，然后大家其实各自在围绕着这个当中，我觉得 其实这个大数据非常非常的重要，就是基于其实很多像比如说像杨科老师这样的一些就是他们的研究学术的这样的一些数据带给我们很多就是可以更精准的去聚焦到现在乡村儿童他可能最缺失的，所以我们会看到说现在的一些重点，我们会看到比如说可能很多的伙伴开始转向心理健康就是他的社会情感、心理健康的这样的一些缺失。然后呢，其实我们机构当然科学这个不仅仅是我们机构，其实我们看到就是整个的这个教育部它的一个导向，就是发文也好，包括在整个乡村的学时的设置上，其实科学课的保障和课时的增加都是他们非常非常大的这样的一个重点，以及可能还有一个我觉得也是非常有前瞻性的，就是美育。就是艺术艺术对于乡村儿童成长的这样的一些重要性，所以这个其实是我们非常非常大的一个焦点，就是从有学上到转向上好学。那回到科学教育的现状呢，其实现在乡村面临的一个非常大的一个困境是，很多的学校已经建了非常好的，比如说科学教室和实验室，但是呢，严重缺乏好的科学老师。包括就是其实我们整个科学教材的这个就是迭代，其实也都在努力的再去进步当中。然后呢，其实我们在今年我们跟 UNDP 也有一个非常大的合作，叫他数字创造营，就是我们在全国联合了非常多的志愿者，去为女孩专门去开设就是帮助他们去理解就是科技和数字化的这样的一些夏令营。那我们在做这个的时候，其实我们就在思考说，那相对于城市的儿童来说，乡村的孩子当他要去接受这样的一些科技或者数字化的教育的时候，其实他更重要的是什么？那我自己非常非常我觉得非常的有共鸣的，就是海燕老师讲的，我们认为可能我们不要更聚焦于在短时间内给他输入大量的科技的知识，所以我们当时去找了4个抓手。第一个抓手呢，就是我们希望他去重新理解学习，除了线下他的老师教他之外，实际上 online 的学习会成为未来甚至他离开学校之后终身学习非常非常重要的一个抓手。所以我们希望让他去重建对学习的认识，这是第一个支点。然后第二个支点是我们希望让他理解科技不是离他很遥远的事情，而是其实跟他的生活非常息息相关的。然后第3个呢，其实因为我们希望他可以去关注到科技，其实他最终的目的不是去学一堆非常高大上的这个词汇和技术知识，而是其实科技从来它的初衷都是更好去改善人们的生活。所以其实当他学了科技之后，我们就给他一个小任务，就是我在社区当中去发现一些真实的问题。那刚才茶歇的过程当中，其实我们已经看到暑假女孩们带来的很多的她的问题，以及其实我们也虽然在这个短片当中来不及呈现他们的方案，但是我们发现他们基于当他们去改善他们身边社区的老人或者垃圾分类这样一些身边问题的时候，极大的激发了他们对于科技的这种亲近感和热情。所以这是第3个抓手，然后还有第4个非常非常重要的就是合作学习所以这个其实是我们在思考乡村去做科学教育的时候，我们去关注的一些焦点。谢谢。
非常感谢您给到了我们很多 ，You give us a breath of fresh air, I think, a lot of grassroots practice as to how things can be done and what you are doing. Really appreciate it. 那么我们今天的这个讨论呢，其实可以无限的延长但是不能无限延长就是我们当我们有一个好的目标，大家都在积极的想如何来达到，而且每个人都在自己的这样的一个可以说是一个生物圈当中寻找最好的方式来做到这些目标。所以呢，我想我们应该给到大家更多的时间去做这件事情。现在呢，我们只有大概2到3分钟的时间，来总结一下我们今天的讨论I want to leave all of you free time to do things because actions count. Therefore, when it comes to talking right now, I'm going to leave it limited to 2 to 3 minutes to have a wrap up of our discussion. Elena, you will talk last because only before Sana, because we promised her leave the best for last. She will remember the point she want to make. Yes, right. So I will leave. I want to talk to our 3 Chinese panelists first. 那么我想呢，还是刚才这个顺序吧，好吧？先是请王海燕女士啊。海燕女士，你就简单的用2到30秒总结一下你的想法。
好的，好的。
今天我们讨论之后的想法。
好的，好的。我觉得大家其实都是有非常多的共识。那么这个要鼓励更多的女孩子来从事科学教育，或者说投身这个未来的科学事业，其实就3个，从我这个观点就3个重要的领域。一个就是我们要改变这样一个社会规范，尤其是从小家庭教育，然后我们这个孩子的成长环境，就是我们需要看到这样的一个从小他的这个周围环境的一个规范上的一个社会规范上的一个变化吧。第二个呢，就是我们的这个 STEM 教育，它需要跟一个孩子的这个整体发展要融合起来，它是一个系统工程。虽然我们在谈论这个 STEM education， 但是它离不开人的整体。
简单的总结就好了，
可以了，
不用再 go into details 啊。
好的，
我们总结，请您就一句话总结一下 ，biggest takeaway， so that we feel this afternoon is not wasted 。
我觉得刚才我已经总结了，我都说了2点了。
好，谢谢您。接下来呢，请杨可老师。
好，我就简单的总结一句话，就是对于那些在顺境中的女孩，希望她们能够从事科学研究的时候能够顺势而上乘风而上。另外，对于那些处在逆境中的女孩，希望她们能够打破刻板印象，能够巾帼不让须眉，同时能够和女性榜样接触，见贤思齐。
好，
我就说这儿。
而且我们不仅是希望，我们还会为他们提供支持。
对，
这也是为什么在一起。对，谢谢您。好，谢谢。接下来请陈丹女士一句话总结。
好的，我就说2点吧，因为在乡村女孩当中呢，有一部分会走出去接受好的教育，那我们希望说教育不止让她走出大山，她也可以回去建设她的家乡，而其实有80%多的女孩不会走出去，那我们希望呢，她通过科技，她会知道说，其实科技可以给她力量，她在乡村依然可以去创造非常好的生活。谢谢。
好，谢谢。So then, Elena.
So I would say I'm optimistic because awareness is the first step. If we are having this discussion, is at least because we are aware of this gender inequity. Okay, so now let's do something. In the meantime, we know that based on the studies, it will take more than 130 years to have, some equity between gender if we stay on the same, way of what we are doing. Okay, so this is something which is quite impossible perhaps, but let's do it. Okay, so please girls, okay. Be much more self-confident. It's impossible for men, like it's impossible for you, but let's do it. Okay, and men are doing it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, all right, you're dropping all the talking points. I'm sure it's about we have already done it, right? Thank you. And Sana, you are the last. Remember the point you want to make?
No, but I have a better one. So women, we make up 70% of the world's poor. If we can empower women as leaders, that increases innovation and accelerates progress towards meeting the needs and breaking through all of this. Technovation, 70% of our alumni go into STEM courses and degrees. 60% get careers in STEM, and over 50% do exactly what Shendang is saying, which is they make an impact in their own community. So that's over half of them. My call to action for everyone who's here today and is listening, the Technovation season has just opened. I invite you all to register as mentors, as coaches, as ambassadors. And if you have daughters or you're an educator yourself, please go and register. It's on technovationchallenge.org.
I just want to say, how adaptable are these women? When I ask them to speak 5 minutes, they can speak it. When I ask them to say in 1 sentence, they could do it. Just like that. I think there's a lot of confidence building mutually among all of us today. and a lot of best practices. Meanwhile, sincerity from the bottom of our heart. When things are becoming challenging, as we were discussing together with other ladies during the lunchtime, things coming from the bottom of the heart, you can always achieve it, no matter what. So I want to thank all of you to be with us for this wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye-bye. 谢谢. Thank you, Elena, for keeping my company on the stage. Thanks. Yeah. 谢谢. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. 我们是视频的，好吧，谢谢。So thank you, everyone. You give us a lot of energy in the air. This is what I felt. Beate, you're sitting here, so I want to tell you, this is what I feel from the very beginning this morning until today, right now. All the positive energy coming from our speakers and our audience. Wonderful. Thank you. And now let's move on to the next part. We have a great educator, distinguished keynote speaker joining us online, Andreas Schleicher. Mr. Schleicher is the Director for Education and Skills, as well as Special Advisor on Education Policy to the Secretary General at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, otherwise known as OECD. With his visionary leadership, Mr. Schleicher has spearheaded the program for international student assessment, otherwise known as PISA. You all know that it's a very important system that has been established. It's an influential global study that assesses the knowledge and skills of 15-year-old students in various countries. Without further introduction, Andreas, the floor is yours. And thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. You have such a really important topic to discuss here. And I want to just share a few pointers with you. The first thing I really want to highlight is that we have seen good progress in the share of women, being in education. Now, when you actually look at levels of attainment, the share of men with poor qualifications has declined over last decades in OECD countries, but the share of women with poor qualifications has declined even steeper. So when you look at the labor force today, actually there are fewer poorly qualified women than men in most countries. And I think it's a big achievement. Now, when you look at this historically across time, you can see here on the, where the situation was in the year 2000, in many countries, men were more likely not to have achieved upper secondary education. If you look at this in the year 2020, actually, you can see women are in an advantage when it comes to poor qualification. So I think this is a great achievement that we can see in many countries for the last 2 decades. When we look at young people in school, you mentioned our PISA survey, we can see in mathematics, actually there are now countries where girls do better in mathematics than boys. Now you can see them here on the left side. And in most countries where boys are still doing better, the advantage is not so big, actually. And that's also a really interesting shift. 20 years ago, mathematics was the domain of men. Today, you can say, actually, there are many girls doing quite well in mathematics. Even though when you look at the top performers, that's where we can still see a big difference. Now, when you look at the share of top performers in mathematics, it's often still boys rather than girls. So education systems need to work harder not to raise just the average level of performance, but also strengthen excellence in mathematics and making it interesting, engaging. If girls do not see the life opportunities that mathematics offers, then why would they study hard and become really, really excellent in this? And that's very important. When we look at science, you are talking about STEM here, you can actually see in many countries, girls are now doing better than boys in school science. You look at Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, particularly in the Middle East, it's often the escape route. You do well in science and you can have a great career on your own. But you can also see in other countries, there's still, boys doing better on this. But overall, it's another sea change. Huge progress being made where young girls actually get better educated in the sciences. And that means they have a better chance to move into STEM-related fields. But, doing well in knowledge is, necessary, but is not a guarantee. And I want to actually show you something that people often overlook. And that is what you want to do in your life, the career expectations that 15-year-old students have. And we looked at that in the PISA assessment as well. When you ask, girls at age 15, what do you want to do? Many say, I want to become a doctor. I want to become a teacher. I want to become a nurse, a psychologist, a veterinarian. These are the 5 top expectations for young girls. Very few want to go into, engineers or technology professionals. And think about this. I just showed you, actually, when it comes to the knowledge and skills, girls do as well as boys, sometimes often even better. But when it comes to their career expectations, the story is very, very different. Good performance in science in school does not guarantee that girls also see the sciences as something that is relevant for their lives. No? And what is very clear is, you cannot be what you cannot see. Yeah. When girls do not, if you do not meet a scientist who is female, why would you study science? And actually, when you ask the same question to boys, you can see the most popular destinations are engineers, ICT professionals. At age 15, boys have a very clear understanding of the relevance and importance of those occupations, even though they are not doing better than the girls. So we want to change the picture. It's not enough to just, educate more of the subject. It's very important to educate how to change the mindsets. And that has often to do with the kind of role models that students see. And we can see, when we look at career expectations of, becoming a computer scientist or an engineer, despite the fact that in the real world, percentage point on average across countries, but in some countries as high as 15%. That's basically the career expectations in that field that are still very, very much gender biased, even though that does not have a foundation in the knowledge and skills. When you look at, what do people do online? You can see actually here, the girls are much more likely to read. Girls enjoy reading more. They also participating more in social networks. But the boys are more likely to play online games. They're all, more likely to play collaborative games. And often it is those games that, bring you closer also to the field of the sciences. So behavior is really, really important. Let's move on to tertiary education, universities and vocational education. Also there, you can see the proportion of tertiary graduates in the workforce has really risen steeply for men, but even more steeper for women. So if you look in the workforce today, the more female graduates than male graduates. But again, that is the average. And when you drill down by subject area, you can see that women often choose the studies that are not linked to very strong employment or earnings outcomes. Here you can see the percentage of girls among new graduates in different fields of tertiary education. And I show you the data for 2020, the dark bar, and for 2005, that is in 2000, in the light blue bar. So 15 years of difference. But if you look at the pattern, it has basically not changed. You can see in education, almost 80% of the graduates are girls. If you look at health and welfare, same thing. If you look at engineering, less than 30%. If you look at computers, actually, the share of girls has shrunk, has become smaller. The world is requiring more people in this field, but actually the share of girls moving into this field has shrunk. But overall, you can say, well, what we do today and what we did 15 years ago has not been very different. If you look at, the fields of study among the graduates aged 25 to 65, you can see the same pattern. No? If you look to education, it's all women. If you look to engineering and manufacturing and construction, largely men. And again, very stable. Those figures, we have talked a lot about, increasing gender equity, but actually very little change in the reality. We have improved the school knowledge of girls, but we haven't changed the attitudes and aspirations. And again, I already highlight this when it comes to information and communication technologies, the share of women actually has shrunk. And you can see also when you look at enrollment in information and communication technology, in some countries, it's also going backwards. You look at the situation in 2005 was sometimes better than in the year 2020. So we have to work a lot harder to actually get more women into those fields. And that is not about the school subjects. They're doing well. It is about, creating powerful role models, creating stronger aspirations, and also giving better career advice. That's really, really important. We can see, for example, at university, when people go to university, men are much more likely to use mathematics in their daily life. And what you do not use, you will lose. So even if the girls have done very well in school in mathematics, if they are in jobs that do not use their mathematical skills, one day they will lose it. We all have those kind of issues skills that we do not use, we lose. And you can see actually the use of mathematics here among tertiary students, so well-educated people, is much lower for women. Not everywhere though, and that's also interesting. But there are some countries in which women are doing much better in skill utilization, and where labor markets are much better in extracting value from the skills that women bring. And the result is that actually at older ages, men are doing often much better in mathematics than women, because not just because of the school education, but because they're much more intensive users of those kinds of skills. So what can we do? It's not really about big change in the school systems. It's very much about getting parents, getting teachers and employers to become aware of this, creating better opportunities. The most important career decisions, you do not make when you graduate from school. That's very, very important. The most important career decisions that you make when you actually start your school, in the first years of primary education. That's when the role models really matter. That's when having girls that understand the world of work is really important. So giving, internships, giving, career expectations, bringing people from the real world into primary schools can be very, very powerful. Teachers are often not very well positioned to explain, the real world to young people. So if, you bring parents and different role models into schools to help children understand the world, you can actually change aspirations and ideas. We also know that more young people could choose scientific and technological careers if there was greater focus on helping students, and particularly girls, overcome their anxiety towards mathematics. Often, girls do quite well in mathematics and in science, but they still have this perception that, mathematics and science are for boys, and therefore they feel that anxiety. So this is something that parents, that teachers can actually pay greater attention to, so that that anxiety doesn't stand in the way of having girls becoming very good and choosing this as their aspiration. And often enjoyment is part of this. Study fields that you do not enjoy, that you just learn for school, are not the ones that you will pursue later in life. So making sure that girls actually, enjoy what they do is very important. Training teachers to better recognize the attitudes and aspirations of their students. often, you know, as teachers, we focus very much on, you know, conveying the content of the discipline. And that's, of course, important. But we need to also have a good understanding of who are the students in front of us now? Who do they want to become? How can we help them on their journey? So, and that is going to help them to teach more effectively and strengthen aspirations. Also improving participation in technical and mathematical activities, you know, robotics classes, lots of things you can actually implement these days where you can experience STEM. STEM is not about, you know, just learning in classrooms. It's much better to, you know, do a scientific experiment than to have your teacher talk about the results of that experiment. So the more girls are actually involved in the doing of science, the more likely they're going to take pride in this and interest in this. Video gaming, web browsing, they are typical activities that are often enjoyed by boys, but they're actually often quite good at, you know, developing the kind of skills and attitudes that are very, very important in science. You know, I must say, you know, I'm a scientist by background, and often it breaks my heart when I see how we sometimes teach science like religion. We try to make students believe in some scientific theory, then we give them lots of exercises to practice, and at the end we test, you know, whether they remember our answers. That is not what STEM is about. STEM is not about learning answers. STEM is to ask the right questions, and we need to encourage, particularly girls, to actually ask questions, to question the established wisdom of our times, not simply to reproduce it. And last but not least, it is also very important to encourage the collaboration, you know, between public and private sectors, now to bring companies, enterprises into this world, to actually ensure that they, you know, bring the real world of STEM into the school world, which is often still quite abstract and remote from that, giving, you know, young girls opportunities to explore things in the company, to see how scientists work, how science discover new things. All of the things are ones that we can do to ensure that we do not just, you know, improve the science knowledge and skills among girls. Actually, education has done well with this. I think this is really a big accomplishment of education, but more importantly, that we change and improve the attitudes and values behind this. Now, once again, you cannot be what you cannot see. So making STEM visible to young people is very, very important. You know, I've talked a lot about young people. Why? Because those attitudes and aspirations are very, very difficult to change later in life. You know, you can do something in university, you can incentivize, you know, participation in certain field of study, but experience shows it's very hard, it's very difficult. The best chances that we have to create a level playing field is, you know, when children are open-minded, when they actually are willing to learn, to unlearn, and relearn, to be prepared for their future, not just our past. Thank you very much.
非常感谢 Andrea 的介绍。每一次呢 ，Andrea 在讨论的过程当中呢，都会给到我们很多的数据和相关的一些最新的动态，感谢他。下面呢，让我们荣幸的邀请联合国开发计划署驻华代表处传播与创新协理袁安琪女士和大家来分享来自不同地区的4位他数字未来训练营的志愿者们给我们带来了一些什么样的惊喜。那据我了解呢，我们有这样的一个训练营，而且第1期的成果已经可以跟大家来进行分享了。那袁安琪女士呢，在2021年加入联合国开发计划署驻华代表处以后，一直负责支持中国区社交媒体的传播和创新项目。下面呢，有请袁安琪女士，作为本个环节的主持人来和大家分享，有请。
好，非常感谢田伟老师的分享，然后也非常荣幸可以参与到他数字未来创造营的这样一个筹划和执行的当中，然后很感谢有这样的一个机会，在接下来的这个环节当中呢，和大家分享我们的阶段性成果。那回顾起我们最初其实在联合国小院里面，在这个办公室里一起筹备和筹划脑报我们的项目雏形的时候，我们一直在说，其实我们最重要的是希望可以弥合我们的数字鸿沟，然后鼓励更多的女孩，尤其是乡村女孩来去探索到我们 STEM 的这样的一个魅力和有趣，然后并且呢可以真正的深入到我们的社区乃至整个世界去关注到这样的一个情况。那么所以说这个是我们的一个初心。那么在这样的一个过程当中，这个使命其实它是相对非常有挑战性的，我们需要去思考到如何研发出适合中国女孩学习的这样一个课程内容，以及呢通过何种方式可以更好的支持到我们乡村的女孩去开启这样一个数字化之旅。那在很多次的讨论之后，我们最终发现了这样一个培训志愿者的方式来进行。那么在这个8个月的时间当中，我们的团队不断的去摸索，我们和国际的组织，然后我们和社会组织，比如说刚刚其实有分享到的像 Technovation 还有1公斤盒子，然后我们和大家来进行很多的合作，包括教育专家，然后包括说我们的科技专家，然后我们还有和媒体平台一起来去努力的找到最适合我们的这个课程研发的这个内容。那么当我们研发出课程的1.0版本的时候，我们非常的激动，我们觉得可能它是一个非常好的一个雏形，可以来去运用。但是其实当时我们也很紧张，在6月底的时候，我们发布了第1个志愿者招募的这样的一个推文，然后我们当时在想说是不是有可能没有人来报名啊？但是让我们非常非常惊喜的事情是，在活动发出的2周之后其实它就有了将近有150位的志愿者来去支持我们的内容，而这一群志愿者其实就很好的来支持到了我们后面的这个所有的这些内容的一个推进，然后也给了我们更多的前进的这样一个勇气。那么我们呢，为了可以来去呈现我们的创造营的一个温暖的瞬间，我们也去制作了一个回顾的视频，然后欢迎大家来去观看。好，谢谢。
和更好实现自己的梦想。
他们对这个世界有着无限的好奇。
我家庭是不健康，我爷爷不舍得开空调，影响水下生物。
女孩们提出的这一个个问题，是对未来的探索，也是世界目前面临的挑战。当科技遇见它，会发生怎样的奇妙反应？
我们需要让教育走出校园，保持教育的趣味性。
小城市的最后，主要向居民体现了各种垃圾包含的种类，让居民对垃圾分类更加的清晰。
用虚拟现实信息和真枪现实帮助投资人进行社交活动和社交参与。
由于牧民直售牛羊的收入比较低，所以我们想网络上售卖自己的特色产品，来帮助牧民提高收入。
少女的眼中容纳下很大通过我们的努力，能让每一个女孩子都能做到这样。
希望世界各地的老师们都能参与起来。今年夏前，联合国开发计划署主发代表处发起了他数字未来创造营，
旨在为12至18岁的女孩，特别是乡村地区的女孩们提供学习数字化技能的机会，并探索如何得以自用，通过数字赋能，给自己的家乡和社会带来切实的改变。
为弥合数字鸿沟，我们在全中国招募志愿者，短短的3个月内，近100名志愿者已在中国落地了20余个线下创造营，30多个团队提交了他们的科技促进可持续发展的创新方案。我们为志愿者提供的学习支持工具和数字化平台课程，已支持超过400位女孩参与学习 STEM 相关内容，开源课程浏览量超过9万。
男女同学都有学好理科的能力，也有学好文科的能力，了解了可持续发展目标是什么，然后怎么做编程，然后怎么做 PPT。
女孩和科技，
终于改变世界的无限可能。
我们就在
非常感谢大家的关注。然后我想现在其实在屏幕前，包括线下也有我们的志愿者在现场。正是因为每一个你的支持，然后让我们这一段旅程可以如此的温暖和感受深刻。那么我们也很荣幸邀请了3位我们的志愿者进行了线下的这个参与，然后还有1位在线上进行发言。好，那么首先让我们欢迎来自浙江省夏映街道的妇联主席徐佳老师，是一位非常充满了热情、热爱钻研和善于创新的女性。然后多年的教育经验呢，也让她拥有自然而然影响他人的亲和力。徐佳老师，欢迎您进行您的分享。
非常感谢安琪把这么多美好的词汇都送给我。其实我感觉我只是做了一些很微不足道的事情，但是呢，我确实可以很自豪地说，我有一支非常强大而且非常优秀的团队。今天呢，我也带了2位我的小伙伴来到这里，一位呢是我们湾底村的妇联主席吴丽娜，还有一位呢是我们街道妇联孵化的社会组织负责人王小吉。我们这么多漂亮的照片都是他拍摄的。其实呢，刚才我们的安琪也介绍了我的本职工作呢是一位基层的妇联主席，同时呢，我还有一个身份是93学社宁波市委会的妇女工作委员会副主任。那么妇联组织呢，我们大家都知道，它是一个联系、服务妇女、儿童和家庭的这么一个桥梁和纽带。那93学社的社员呢，大多数都是科学技术界高中级知识分子。所以当我在6月28号看到我们联合国开发计划署发出的这个召集令之后，油然而生的就是一种使命感和亲切感。所以呢，我第一时间报了名，而且呢，在很短的时间内就组织了一支由我们的5位高校科研院所的专家学者，以及我们街道湾底村的成员组成的这么一个志愿者团队。但是在暑假的时候，要组织一群12到18岁的女孩，用整整10天的时间来参加这么一个线下的学习，其实是比较困难的。所以呢，我们的志愿者首先是很认真的参加了我们 UNDP 的这个线上的教学培训。学习了之后呢，我们大家做出了一个比较大胆的决定，我们把60课时的这个学习任务拆分成了3大块。一部分呢是线上的学习，我们用了3天的时间用来做这个在线的预学。同时呢，我们把一些重要的学习内容，比如说合作策略的学习，比如说数字技能的学习，我们集中的安排到了2天的时间。那么接下来我们留出了充裕的时间，用于给我们的孩子和我们的导师，因为我们导师团队非常强大，我们可以做到1对1的指导，可以由孩子自己来挑选时间，以一个小组甚至是一个小组的这样的形式呢，去根据他自己的喜好和自己的需求，选择其中的1个半天来进行本地问题的发现、本地资源的调研，甚至是一些研究和分析。那么再后面呢，我们是通过导师和学员自己去商量，你们可以在线上，也可以在线下进行一个有针对性的问题确认、构想最小方案产品以及制作纸质模型。那么最后呢，是呈现出了3个作品。经过这样的一个设计重组之后呢，我们比较顺利的招募到了15位营员，而且呢，比较顺利的完成了为期10天的这么一个数字未来创造营。这是我们当时的一些集中学习的场景。这是呢，我们的营员在我们的志愿者导师的带领下，在湾底村进行一些社会实践活动。我们的营员在活动当中发现湾底村居民居住的区域里，缺少小朋友的户内或者户外的活动场地。同时呢，在儿童的日常的行走的路线上呢，也缺少一些面向儿童的交通标识。所以呢，我们把湾底村的书记请到了我们项目路演的现场，并且呢，请他来点评我们项目的路演。这件事情过去到现在已经整整2个月了。在短短的2个月里，我们的湾底村发生了一些变化。 这是我们村委会里边崭新的妇女儿童驿站，右边呢是我们西江古村小河边专门为儿童设置的50公分高的这个儿童安全警示标志。同时呢，我们官邸村的博物馆一条街以及他们的农业数字大棚都面向儿童开放了研学课程。这个月呢，我们湾底村还在积极的创建浙江省儿童友好乡村。接下来啊，我想跟大家交流一下我在参与数字未来创造营的时候，对于数字时代性别平等的一个思考。因为从我从事的工作来说，以往我一直认为，在这个数字时代，数字技术其实是为女性带来了更多的就业机会，同时呢，也是提高了女性的收入。因为我们知道，在我们中国的互联网领域从事数字经济的女性的比例是达到了55%，尤其是在农村，我们的农村妇女通过经国村播，在网上对这个农产品进行带货，对他们来说是经济地位和家庭地位的双提升。但是这一次啊，我参加了数字未来创造营，包括我自己对于我们17个可持续发展目标的深入学习，我忽然意识到，其实包括我自己在内，刚才很多嘉宾也分享了，我们从小听到的这种女孩子并不适合学习理工科这样的一种固化的思想，导致的结果呢是现在在从事算法编排和算法训练的大多数是男性。那么如果长期这样发展下去，有可能出现的，现在已经看到的就是女孩子她面对的这个 STEM 学习的机会是大大的少于男生的。同时呢，这种性别不平等可能在数字工具、数字技术的加持下会固化甚至扩大。而且呢，数字世界里面的这种性别暴力也可能会慢慢的蔓延，而且这种蔓延是我们很难察觉到，甚至用法律是很难去追溯的。所以呢，我现在认为，回想了我原来的想法，我现在认为啊，数字社会的性别平等可能呢还需要继续努力。我找到了一幅这样的漫画，我觉得我们在做的这个数字未来创造营也好，或者是 STEM 课程也好，其实在做的就是这样一件事情。我们在创造一个让更多的妇女和女童能够平等获得科学技术创新的机会。最后呢，我想用我们这一次志愿者当中有一位志愿者给孩子们分享的一句话来作为我的结束语。这句话呢是他的大学班主任送给他的，是这样说的：到达终点的路有很多条，即使你中途做过几次错误的选择也不要紧，只要坚持努力，最终你仍能到达想要的终点。这位志愿者呢是我们宁波中科院材料研究所的一位90后的女研究员，同时也是一位年轻的博士生导师。他所说的这位他的老师呢，是在我们科技遇见他的视频里面出现过的东华大学的朱美芳院士。朱美芳院士是他的大学老师，然后呢，他又成为了我们数字未来创造营的这么一个志愿者。我觉得这是一种非常美妙的缘分，也正是因为这样一种美好的氛围，让我们可以坚信女孩和科技就是改变世界的无限可能。我的分享就到这里，谢谢。
非常感谢老师的分享。然后那接下来的话呢，让我们邀请冯老师。然后冯老师今天其实早上4点半就赶来坐飞机，然后飞机完了之后又是火车，然后火车完了之后又是公交车，然后风尘仆仆的过来。那他来自四川省的我们的爱友系的发展中心。那非常欢迎老师的分享，来。
稍等一下，不好意思。各位老师大家好，然后我是来自四川成都，然后我今天分享的主题是一场科技之旅发现女孩改变世界的无限可能。我也讲一下就是我跟这个科技营的这个缘分吧。其实我们在那个就是在天府新区的一个街道，还有一个社区是要开展这个社区融合的这个 就是通过教育来改变这个社区融合的这个托管班的，当时是，然后结果呢，然后当我发现了这个就是他擦数字未来的这个创造营，然后我就想，如果能够带到我们的这个托管班的话，可能会更好一些。然后让我们的乡村女孩能够接触到自己不能接触的一些就是科学的东西，能够去通过数字去改变未来。然后我们就进行了一轮招募。最开始招募的时候是在这个成都搞大运会之前的，然后大运会之前呢，然后我们招募的人群是16到18岁。当时呢，我是想，因为要有一点基础，最好是大一点的孩子可能好一些。第一轮招募结束了，结果大运会开了，然后就那个托管班就延后了。然后很多的这个就是高中的孩子，然后他就没有办法再去参加这个就是托管班和这个夏令营了那个时候就很多的就是退出的这个部分，然后我就想那怎么办呢？我们要做第2次的招募了，那我就把这个年龄段就放宽了，就是12到16岁，然后初中的孩子可能就要好一些，因为可能在我们就是那个地方的话，就是高中的孩子他可能更多的会去读一些职高，就会很早的就会去返校，但是初中的孩子还没有，所以我们就进行了第2轮招募，然后第2轮也很快的就爆满了。但是有一个问题就是第二轮的孩子要偏小一点，偏小一点的话，他如何能够更好的去完成我们的这个他数字未来的这个创造呢？那我就想到了，我要建一个志愿者团队。我的志愿者团队的组成呢，都是我们的就是在地的大学生的团队，然后我就进行了志愿者的这个招募，然后大学生的志愿者，然后就会和我一起去全程的参与，然后我将我参与到的这个就是他数字未来的这个创造营的这个线上学习，然后分享给他们，然后我们共同一起去模课，然后模课过后，我在想如何更好的让一个是大学生参与，另外一个是我们的孩子能够更好的有所获，然后有所得，所以我们就选择了让大学生参与到女孩的全程的这个就是创作当中。这也就是说，我们在第1次的时候，是做了一个团队的主题的匹配的，然后我们是通过3个游戏是属于是随机匹配的，然后大学生和女孩们，然后随机的进行了一些匹配，然后另外就是我们的主题也是让那个女孩们自由的去选择，所以最后他们确定了3个主题，一个是零饥饿，一个是气候行动，一个是环境保护。对，然后因为根据那个在地的一些社区的这个情况哈，然后我们也改变了，因为当时这个社区是一个全域的拆迁社区，然后我们要进行一个融合的话，是需要女孩们去做一些社区调研的。当时成都的温度很高，可能有30多度，然后这些女孩们就一天从早到晚，然后都去做这个社区调研，和志愿者团队一起。然后调研过后，他们发现了一些问题，然后在这个三个主题当中，然后进行了一些创作，然后他们一起共创，然后可能有8天过后，然后就开始进行了一个就是那个过程的一个展示，然后完了过后，我们是全程的完成了这个 PPT 的东西，然后。在参加这个营的时候，我觉得有几点可以分享给大家。第一点就是我们陪伴女孩们的成长，让这个就是让他们以鼓励式的这种陪伴，然后提问式的这种启发，然后游戏式的竞争，然后完整的参加完这个夏令营。然后我们的第一个这个展示的这个是环境的保护的这个，他们创造了一个绿色卫士的2.0的这个就是的这个的 APP， 然后还有一个是我们的食安在线。食安在线的话，它可能是是零饥饿的这个主题，然后 下面这个是我们的气候变暖的气候变暖的，他们是用了一个想风的 APP， 然后这个 APP 是让我最感动的是，他们还设计了一些 logo， 完全是每一页都有的，然后表达了他们的思考到很周到、很细致，所以我觉得我能够让这些女孩接触到这个科技，然后让这个就是带来这个机会，让他们与乡村的女孩相遇，让可持续发展在这些孩子们心中生根发芽。这个是我们后一期的另外一个街道，然后另外一个乡村的孩子们，然后我们又组织他们一起，然后重新的种下种子，然后继续发芽。好，我的分享到此结束，稍微有点紧张，不好意思。
好，非常感谢冯老师的分享。那么下面呢，接下来让我们邀请从这个河南省的我们叫做严阳迪的女士，然后她原来其实是我们的联合国志愿者，然后并且呢，其实也一直在做我们 UNDP 的内乡的项目。然后她说，女孩们参与这个活动非常非常的开心。好，非常感谢，请看她的视频。
大家好，我是严阳迪，我是河南省的他数字未来志愿者。那么很荣幸在今年的8月份参与到本次他数字未来创造营的活动中，成为了内乡团队的组织者和志愿教师。我之前学习的专业呢是女性学、发展研究和项目管理。那么在今年8月份的时候，我当时正作为一名联合国志愿者，服务于 UNDP 内乡减贫与可持续发展示范项目。非常荣幸呢，能够成为第一批 HUB 模式的志愿者，参与到本次创造营活动中。我和内乡的另外的9名志愿教师，其中80%都是女性，一同带领着我们河南省内乡县11个女孩参加了本次他数字未来的创造营。那么我们内乡小队的名称呢是叫我们说的都对啊，这个队伍的名字也是由孩子们共创出来的。通过在创造营中学习到的技能和知识，大家共创了一个为12到20岁的女性提供心理健康服务的 APP。那么 APP 的名称呢是叫做女孩星球。APP 以纸质原型和数字原型为载体，旨在真正能够通过我们的研究和思考，去解决当代青少年和青年女性的身心健康问题。为什么会在内乡开展呢？那我是于22年到23年服务于 UNDP 内乡项目的。该项目呢，在19年到23年之间做了特别多结合 MOVE 项目开展可持续发展本土化的工作坊系列活动啊，以赋能更多的一些校长啊、青年教师和学生，让他们更加好的去理解 SDG， 并且呢，能够将 SDG 融入到日常的学习、工作和生活。那么这5年的努力呢，也是基于内乡县一块良好的土壤来开展我们本次他数字未来创造营的活动。前期呢，我们志愿教师接受了线上培训，我认为觉得这个线上培训解决了教师们对于课程授课难度、技术知识匮乏的一些担忧。首先是创造营教材和教案、教具设计的非常完备啊，以及全覆盖。第二个呢是兼顾了这个软性和硬性技能的提升。第3点呢是课堂形式本身的特别，是以一种以学生为主体啊，以学生为中心的这么一种翻转课堂的方式进行的。教师们呢更多的是作为引导者和协助者的角色啊，带领团队共创成果。那么开展整个创造营的周期中呢，我们也是得到了内乡县教体局学校的这个教师、校长、学生的家长和学生自己的一些强烈支持。课堂呢从第1天到第7天，其实给了我们多次非常大的惊喜。第一个惊喜呢是参培女孩她们的自组织能力和团队意识的迅速提升。那么从第1天，其实11个女生是分成2个组的，低年级组和高年级组，而且她们都互相不熟悉，很多人都不敢发言。到第2天上午的时候，2组就突然合并成1个组了，并且每一个组员都疯狂的输出自己的观点。那么在这个过程当中呢，学生他充分的认识到自己是主角，同时呢也明白他们可以是为了共同目标而努力的一个团队。团队中的每一个人呢，他们也非常愿意和尝试这个多重的角色他们可以是领导者，可以是智多星，也可以是气氛组。第2个点呢是参培女孩对于 解决社会问题的渴求和整体理解的一个飞跃。那我们在经历头脑风暴啊、desk research 和实际调研之后，女孩对于社会问题的发掘和整合都是十分敏锐的。那么第3点呢，是参培女孩她们很强大的动手能力和专注程度。在设计纸质原型的时候，从早上8点一直到晚上7点的时候有的时候7点多，家长们都在门口等着，他们就一同在黑板前脑爆点，就有一张脑爆图，上面贴自己的点子一起趴在桌上就研究的这个纸质图该怎么研究出来那基本上是从这个思维导图到草稿图到线稿再到完全稿都是自发的去驱动自己去完成的。创造营其实不像是传统教学，不需要老师他过多的干预，其实通过持续的引导和相信学生，也让他们发现了限于女孩的新的一面他们是主动的，是自信的，是有创造力的那同时有的围观的女教师他们也说以前学校里面可能有一些想法说女生选科选文科，男生选理科，这样的刻板印象其实现在我们可以慢慢的去淘汰了，因为女生本身就可以成为想成为的任何人。而在团队转世之后，其实我们也是第一回听到了女孩们分享自己对未来的一些展望。其实在我们这个培训当中涉及到的，比如说科学家比如说这些数字媒体的这个工作者女孩们说这可能是他们最难忘的一个暑假了，我不知道以后还有没有这样的暑假当时我们说肯定会有的，相信一定会有的。这次创造营对于我们所有人来说都只是一个起点而已，而女孩加科技等于改变世界的无限可能。谢谢。
非常感谢杨迪的分享。然后接下来我们邀请我们云南省的志愿者，她是一位来自彝族的姑娘。然后呢，我卖个关子，她有一个特别棒的经历，然后期待她的分享，欢迎。
大家好，我是来自云南的他城数字未来创造营志愿者张涵。今年8月，我在昆明举行了10天的创造营课程，辅导女孩们完成了保卫饭菜、智能食堂供餐解决方案。这个是我们当时的一个合影。我来自云南省昭通市镇雄县果珠彝族乡。那在我小的时候，我经常听到耳边有这样的一些话语比如说女孩学理工科会比学文科更费劲比如说高科技的东西，女孩怎么能弄懂呢？再比如说女孩进了中学以后会更吃力，等等等等，像这样的一些话，我小时候听得很多。那小时候的我是没有办法分辨在这些话语背后的评判，甚至是歧视。直到后来，我慢慢的成长，才脱离了这些话的影响。所以，当我知道创造营在招募志愿者，有这样的一个机会，可以跟女孩们一起学习 STEAM， 可以跟女孩们一起去走进科技，打破刻板印象，跳出局限，可以让女孩们看到比我小时候更广阔的世界，我马上就报了名。也正是在创造营，我遇到了另外一个昭通女孩陈鲜艳。鲜艳今年有13岁，在2011年的时候，她遇到了一场火灾。这场火灾让她失去了大部分的手指，在她的手臂还有头部覆盖着疤痕。鲜艳是这样一个女孩子，她跟我分享过她的梦想。她有2个梦想，第一个梦想，她希望能够尽快的去完成手术，希望能够留长长的头发，梳她喜欢的发型。鲜艳已经接受过9次手术，她非常希望在下一次植皮手术之后，她可以摘掉帽子，留出长发。这是她的第一个梦想。而她的第2个梦想 是想要成为一名画家。在2020年，残联邀请先燕来到昆明学习游泳，让他能以残疾人运动员的方式去谋求新的出路。从那时候开始，先燕和他的爸爸妈妈、外公、外婆、弟弟一家6口就住在城中村的小房子里面。他的家人在餐馆打工来维持生计。那他要怎么样才能够有经济条件去学习绘画，成为一名画家？几乎烧光的手又怎么样才能拿起画笔，支撑他实现梦想呢？太难了。直到我们创造营的课程进行到 AI 绘画的部分，先燕非常的激动，因为他看到了另外一种实现梦想的可能性。他可以通过 AI 去展现自己脑海中的图景，也可以通过网络工具去搜索和学习绘画的相关知识。这个就是先燕通过 AI 工具创作的绘画作品。这幅画的名字叫做《女孩与科技》。在介绍这幅作品时，先燕说：“我想表达的意思是，科技照亮了我的人生，就像处在坑底里的人，总有一天会被光照到。就像是身处在黑暗当中，先燕的人生有一个困难模式的开局，但是科技的光照亮了他，给了他希望。当然，我们现在的世界并不是完美的，在很多的国家、地区，不同的身份、不同的性别之间，有巨大的机会和资源的差异，而这种差异就像在人和人之间画下了一道鸿沟。有的人为了生存和梦想苦苦挣扎，有的人生来就是赢家，而这种鸿沟正是我们今天在此相聚的原因。与此同时，越来越多的有志之士正挺身而出，用自己的方式去奔走、去呼吁、去奋斗。我们希望能够推动女性从科技中获得力量，也希望通过女性去反馈科技的进步。这正是我们今天在此相聚的原因。我相信科技的光，它不仅能照亮先燕的梦想，不仅能够照亮近500名创造营学员的热情，它也可以照亮每一位想要拥抱科技、想要实现自我的女性的人生。美好的未来走进现实，女孩和科技等于改变世界的无限可能。谢谢大家。
非常感谢我们张涵的分享。然后在他说到点亮的光的时候，其实这一个孩子们他们在我们提供的旅程图当中留下的内容，其实我也想跟大家分享。是的，我看见到处是阳光。是的，我看到每一个人都是发光体。从我们的心出发，去探索更广阔的未来。那么我们的 Her Digital Future 还在招募当中，然后欢迎大家关注我们的这个联合国开发计划署的公众的平台，然后来进行报名。非常感谢，谢谢大家。
谢谢我们的工作人员帮我们再次整理我们的舞台。接下来呢，我们要进行今天的最后一个项目，叫做 Fireside Chat。这一次的围炉对话呢，真的是非常有意义，而且呢也非常高端。 我们非常高兴的能够邀请到来自于非常不同背景的几位科学家和研究者一起来进行探讨。So we will now begin our last session of the day, which is the fireside chat, which is entitled He for She, Mobilizing Women and Men to Act in Solidarity Towards Gender Equality. We're very privileged to have two leading scientists joining us for this conversation, where they will share how to support female scientists in their career development from different angles. First, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Yang Wei of Zhejiang University, also the chairman of the United Nations Consultative Committee on Open Science and Global Partnership of the China Association for Science and Technology. And his many titles fall short of capturing his achievements as a renowned leader and visionary in the field of science. Please, 有请。I'm also equally delighted to welcome Dr. Fu Xiaomei. She is a distinguished young scholar of the Natural Science Foundation of China. She's currently a researcher and director of the Laboratory of Molecular Paleontology at the Institute of Paleontology of the Chinese Academy of Chinese Academy of Sciences, and also a young affiliate of the World Academy of Sciences. Please, Xiaomei, good to see you again. Meanwhile, we are also extremely excited to welcome our moderator for today, which is, I would love to invite himself to come up to the stage because I have a problem pronouncing your name, Ambassador Ibsen, but how to pronounce the first name?
Tore.
Tore, okay. We'll have Ambassador Tore coming from Iceland to help us to understand better and to facilitate this wonderful conversation. So, Ms. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for giving me the rein and to invite me here tonight. Like said, my name is Tore Ibsen, and I'm quite pleased to have this opportunity to moderate this session here tonight, the fireside chat on an important subject, what we call He for She, and concerning how men and women can work together to improve the share of women in sciences. And here we have with us, as been introduced, distinguished scientists, Dr. Yang and Dr. Fu, to discuss with us. But by way of an introduction, we have seen in the presentations here today that there has been a substantial improvement in the opportunities for women to seek to get higher education. And my generation, and I'm born somewhere just after the second half of the last century, we have seen a revolution in terms of women coming to higher education. But the reality, nevertheless, is, as we've seen, that some fields are simply not delivering. And that field is the STEM fields that we've been discussing: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this evidently to all of us is not good news, that is not evolving. And there are, at least in my mind, two reasons why that is not a good news. First, we are evidently not tapping into a major rich pool of talents among young women. We are losing that talent into something else. We could have young women coming into these fields and creating something for us for the future that we are simply losing. And the second reason that I think is very important that we will be getting women into the STEM sector And that's the thought towards the future. We've heard about how science and technology is shaping our future. Artificial intelligence and algorithms are coming in and shaping our attitude and our future. And we have to make sure, like someone said, I think it was San said that earlier, that we need to make sure that these artificial intelligent machines and algorithms, they reflect the value and experience of all of us. Today, they reflect primarily the experience and values of men. But we need to get women into these sectors to shape this development, to make sure that it reflects our experience and our expectations and aspirations of all of us, of humanity. Now, fortunately, education institutions, universities, research institutes, scholars, scientists realize this. And there's been a lot of effort around the world to trying to attract women into the STEM fields. And I know that there's been lots of effort here in China to do lots of programs to try to get women more into the sector. But more needs to be done. And that's what we want to be discussing here tonight. And I would like to then start with you, Dr. Yang, because of your long and distinguished experience. You've been working with a lot of scientific institutions, universities, been a lot of boards, and a lot of experience under your belt. And I would like to first question to you, if you could reflect on if there has been any change, if that's positive, and what we can expect in the future.
Thank you for the question. I think there have been a lot of changes. So when I was a university student, in my class, we have 42 students, all male. So they called us the class of monks. And currently, that was 50 years ago. So through the 50 years, I think currently in the universities, the enrollment is about equal. That is, the number of female students is almost the same as the number of male students. Even for the case of master students, they are gradually approaching to about the equal number. But now I think the barrier is for the doctor students, the PhD students. You know, the time for a person to pursue PhD study is somewhere in 25 to 30. So that age is typically the time for female to get married and has fall in love, get married, and to establish a family. And for men, it's maybe you can still, after you finish your PhD, then you start a family. So this is the first difficulties. And I think now the percentage of female doctor students is maybe only 20% or 30%, and the male is 70 to 80%. So this is the first barrier we currently has to face. And the second barrier is the academic career. I'm working in the universities, and in university for a tenure track faculty. And it is a very demanding work. Sometimes you have to spend all the say every evening from 7 to 11 in the office and 7-11 p.m. And so that is, and also during this era, this period, the family has to raise children. So that's another difficulties. And the third difficulty is in China, we have some we call talent selection mechanism. And I think Dr. Fu knows it very well. So now for the talent selection, for example, in NSFC, one is we called Yuqing. Yuqing is typically in the 30s. I think the female percentage is something like 30%. But for Jieqing, that is much smaller percentage, maybe less than 20%. So that's you gradually see the difference. And the last obstacle or barrier is for the academic leadership. So the current situation in China, for example, in the academy, we only has probably less than 10% of all academicians who are women. So I think the question is how to you view the equality. So the equality has to be viewed as we should have, sometimes it's not a fair competition. That is, you know, the women has to raise children, and they have a lot of time has to maintain the family, so they cannot spend long hours in the office and so on. And sometimes the men do not want the women to be their leader or to be their boss, things like this. So that kind of situation, so you should see the equity or equality, that is, even you're not on the same ground, we have to change the ground to let them level, then choose the good people for the job. I think I just briefly mentioned this.
I thank you very much for that, Dr. Yang, because I think you have addressed or brought out the analysis of the reality that we are all facing in every society. And I think we want to move the discussion on to address how we can solve these problems, because this is exactly the barriers, and there are solutions, but we'll move to that later. But before that, I would like to get to Dr. Fu to get her experience. And by the way, allow me to congratulate you for receiving the Aleppo Outstanding Young Scientist International Award that I understand that you received this year, so congratulations for that. But you work in a very specialized field, ancient genetics, complicated field and very specialized. And in such a specialist field, what is your experience there in terms of involvement of women?
Actually, before I get kids, I never think about I'm a female scientist. So this actually answers the questions. So I think the field also quite competitive, but I think at that time period, it's really like when we have pressure, also have really a high rank of the task. We don't take it as a task. Actually, especially for example, through the PhD time period, like Dr. Yang mentioned, actually we take ourselves challenging ourselves, like try to make, if it's possible, we can solve the problem. And also through time by time, actually we become stronger and stronger. and finally surprised because actually I changed my major during the PhD time period. So that people really surprised what I'm doing, but I don't realize that's really special when they told me. But when I start become a supervisor, I realized, I think for the, no matter female or male, when we face the question, how we solve that is quite important. So first, try your best. Don't thinking you are success or you're failed. Try your best. And then when you try your best, no matter what happens, you can handle the result. I think this is the major point through my career before I get baby. Yeah, and beyond that, when the first time people talking, I'm a famous scientist, I feel really surprised because in my past world, I don't realize that, as I mentioned, and I argue really strongly when the first time happens. But after later, when I have more babies, I realize, yes, it's tough. But the tough is not through from the ability, it's other things. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Fu. I think there are two themes that clearly come out from both of you that are very important. It is the work-life balance is one. And the second is the issue of the values of the institutions. When you get, the higher you get into the institutions, the higher to the top, and to the decision makers, it is more male-dominated than female-dominated. That then affects the values of how decisions are made. Now, the reality is that we do have solutions for both issues. And I want then to move the discussion a bit to the he for she theme. That is the sort of the main theme of a discussion today. Up to now, the carriers of the solutions for women and the women's have been women themselves, women movement themselves. They have, through their work, their campaigning, they have pushed the authorities to change the legislation, making it more equal, improve the education of women, give them access to the labor market, and move things on. But that is on the legal level in terms of what should be. But when it comes to the reality of implementing these laws, the fact is that I and Dr. Young, we are sitting in the decision-making positions, and there are less women with us. So the question then goes to me and Dr. Young: can we do something in our organizations to change this? How can we help our colleagues, female colleagues in our organizations, to rise to the top and be part of the decision-making in order to implement all these laws and regulations that are supposed to favor equality? Dr. Young.
I think you are asking a very good question. So I can say two examples. The first one, I have been working at the National Science Foundation for several years. So we have this talent project. So one is we call the Excellent Young Scientist. That is previously, it should be less than 38 years old. That's the age limitation. Then because in the 30s, and women in the 30s has to bear children. So then we changed our policy that we can extend the age limit for the women, not 38 to 40, so that even the female students has 2 years, in gave the birth to the children and the baby care and so on, and still be level with their male competitors. And so after this policy, the women percentage goes up. But above that, there's another talent selection we call the outstanding young scientist. It used to be has an age limit of 45 years old. So we have difficulties to further raise the extend the age limit for the female, because everybody think 45, below 45 is young people and above 45 is middle age. But United Nations changed the definition of what is the young people, what is the middle-aged people. Then now we extend the female age limit to 48, now become a little bit level. So this is one example. That is, you can consider their difference in the career development and also the responsibility and the labor they have to pay. And the second example is I also associate with the leadership of what called the CWAST, the World Academy of Science. So CWAST has formulated a new policy. That is, if when they examine the new candidate for their member, so they will at the same about the same level. If they're female and the male, they will take the female first. Okay, and for the country like China and India and Brazil, they are more advanced among the developing countries. So they ask, if you recommend one candidate, it should be woman. If you recommend two candidates, the first one has to be woman, and the second one can be man. So by this change in policy, I think this year the candidate for the class member is the female percentage raised to 40%. So that is a quite achievement. This is for the developing country, including Africa and so on. And also now the president of CWAST is a female. Okay, so and the executive committee of the CWAST is half female, half male. So that is from the people who can formulate the policy, or to that is, we should consider different approaches to change the ground, to let the competition, which is more equally. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Yang. You've raised additional issue and important issue. I would like to direct that question to you, Dr. Fu. Is this the solution? What we, from where I come, we call positive discrimination, is not a good term in my view, but this approach of selecting women over a man as a candidate, or giving women a better chance in the selection process, is that the solution, or do we have to do something more?
I think for this policy is quite nice, but for my side, because I experienced quite a lot of that, I feel like that's really improvement. But beyond that, I think they have really important support. It's not just like the program extension, the time. Actually, we are scientists. Time don't waiting for us, right? also some really important things also cannot waiting. Oh, you're just waiting and then you have time, you start doing that, right? So because the competition is always there, and also we enjoy the science, not just like, okay, now I can relax, I don't do anything. Sometimes you just cannot stop. But how to make that cannot stop continue? I think this is quite important to the society to help, especially for the childcare things. As Dr. Yang mentioned, actually, in this point, it should be important to have more support for that part, because for the before the kindergarten, you know, it's really hard for the females to really can have 100, not 100%, but quite a lot of time to focus on the work. So in this case, one thing's like if can provide like the affordable, accessible, the date like this daily care, you know, from younger time period of the kid is quite important for the young scientist. I think that is one part. And beyond that, another part is the men. I feel like sometimes, yes, I understanding, yes, it's really important to work really hard. Even female also really work hard. But sometimes I feel like men sometimes take the excuse, you know, I have to work. But actually, you know, it's not every time, you just 24 hours, right? Except sleep. You have other times. You maybe watch TV or you maybe just watch some news, but why not just together, you know, to help, to really together for the men give more contribution for the babies things. I think these two parts, if can really helpful, I believe more and more young scientists, no matter female or male, can have more energy to focus on and pursue on what they want. Yeah.
I think the flexible office hour is also beneficial to offset that.
That's true, and I think you know the solutions and the measures that have been applied, and you've referred to Dr. Young, are important to raise the age of women in terms of application of grants, etc., to complete the study. But maybe that doesn't address the root cause of the problem, because that delay also the women, like Dr. Fu says, you cannot just wait. If you're a scientist, are you interested in something, you want to move on into the field and make a contribution now, not after 2 years, not after 3 years, and you don't want to have to wait for it. And then you get into this again to the issue of work-life balance. And you mentioned daycare, that's an important thing, but you also, Dr. Fu, you mentioned the whole relationship between men and women within marriage or living together, having child together. And then you get into the whole attitude issue of how do we, is it possible in view, Dr. Fu, to change the thinking of men so they start to take the understanding that they also have the responsibility of staying at home with their young child when it's born, and also to leave the office at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening to go home to feed their child? Do you think it's possible?
I think for this question is not sometimes not their own choice, right? I think the society, for example, a lot of places they have to force the men to also have this, like women have maternal leave, they can have like father time, right? To really take care. I think the society have to have this kind of build up, not like this family, inside of this family for this man, is this in society environment. I think if with that, beyond the man, also the service things can support together. Finally, that can be really work really well. Also in combined with Dr. Yang mentioned this extension, because also helpful because this can give women have more confidence, also have enough time to pursue the career they want. Not like when they have energy, they have no chance, right? I think this open for this policies is quite important. But if we don't need to do that, if we can have a one step back, like I mentioned, the society have that kind of system environment built up. That should be also quite important. Yeah.
So, Dr. Young, where shall we start to change that?
Like I just mentioned, so there are they have to go both way. That is, both the females and the males has to work together to get a better equality for the optimal combination of family and the career and everything. Yeah.
That's very true. And I think the important thing is also here, we have to change values. And you don't have that, but where I come from, we have not maternity leaves, we have parental leaves. So both the parents get 6 months when a child is born, so they can combine it, so they can stay 1 year together with the child. And that has been a game changer, because that has completely changed the thinking of men in our society. Now when I had my son, that's many, many years back, I remember I was walking around with him with a pouch on my belly in the city and around, and people looked at me and found me a bit strange, because that was in the old days. But now you see young men strolling down the streets with their babies in the baby carrier, chatting with one another and discussing, sharing experience and advice on changing the diapers and feeding their children. Is that a possibility here in China to introduce that?
So I heard from many people to talk to me on the policy in several North European countries. That is, if you are in the period of PhD, if you has babies, then you can on leave still get paid by the fellowships and like that scholarships. So the possibility that you mentioned, that is, you can be the family will decide, is it better for the man or the women to on the maternity leave and to take care of the baby. I think this is an interesting idea, and still to see if the society in China can accept it. Yeah.
So let's move then on to another issue. The first party that we spoke about was the work-life barrier, but also the whole question of keeping women within the STEM field, to keep them interested, because there are other reasons that I've been told for why women drop out. They might go into the STEM field for studies, but they drop out of the research, they just drop out of the studies because
people to really pursue their career. I think now more and more focus on that. I think we are all benefit from that. And at least from that part, I don't feel like the female have less chance. Yeah, this is from my angle. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. I can hear that you have reflected a lot on these issues, and you are supportive, and you've given us good examples of policies that can work. But in your experience, have you been able to have the opportunity to as a mentor of assisting young women to excel in the field?
Yeah. So I through all my life, I supervised something like 45 graduate students with my students, but only maybe 5 of them are female students because I'm in engineering. Okay, and so the very important thing is for the female PhD student is they has to be very confident on what they're doing, and also they have to be very persistent on the goal they want to achieve. So sometimes when they got troubles from the other thing else, for example, it has not very good on their love pursuit, then they get emotionally disturbed. So as the supervisor, we have to we're aware the situation and to give them a very good psychological preparation on your life still very long, and you can find somebody better. And currently, the most important thing to forget all of this is to pursue your study, something like that. But the situation has changed quite a lot. For example, the last year, when I was in the engineering division of Zhejiang University, so we have a tenure review for all the candidates from different departments. And the best 2 who get the tenure are female. They're very confident, they're very productive, and they're much better than the other candidate. So that gave us the hope that really there are extraordinary female scientists. I think Dr. Fu is herself is one of them. And so we do hope that the world can progress better and to get the prosperity of science by women and men combined together.
I would agree. I think everybody would agree with that. But you spoke in terms of the numbers. The reality is still this, that there are less women in the STEM sectors. And you know, the work-life balance, that applies to all the fields. So not only to STEM, it applies to everything in life. And that's an issue that has to be addressed. But without being too critical, there's something with the STEM sector that somehow it either doesn't attract women, or the women that are attracted to the sector, they don't go in there, or they do not excel in the sector. And that's not because they are not able to, because we've got a lot of capable women going through the STEM sector. So the question is it because of we know that because they're mostly men in the class, they're mostly men as professors. And the question is to you, Dr. Fu, how were you received as a young female student going into such a male-dominated sector? Were your man colleagues, were they supportive? Were they, like Dr. Young, they want to support you and encourage you on, or did you feel there was a resistance in the community of you coming in?
Actually, not just about the student. For my entire team, we have 80% is female. Yeah, so what we can see, actually female also have females really good ability, but not means we selected bias with the female side. So for each role of the team, actually based on the requirements, we selected, and when we have interview, we are not thinking about the gender. I think this is one point. Actually, I have one choice in the past, because somebody told me in my team we have too many women. So maybe you should balance a little bit. So at that time, actually influenced me a little bit. So in that interview, actually, finally we choose a man. But finally, yes, he's not suitable. Not means the ability. So just always, every chance, you just need to find the right person. Not means they are female or male. I think this is just what I want to say. Beyond this, for the students, currently, based on my watching, in previous time, we have more male, but now it's like maybe some semester we have even more female. And this semester we have like slightly more female. So, but this is just my watching. Not means we selected anything by either they are female or male, just based on whether they are suitable or whether they have potential ability for the science. Yeah, this is currently at least for my trying. But beyond that, also I want to say, because female, not because ability, just because they have some situation, needs more flexible. So in my team, except researchers, for the technicians, for example, we actually have more flexible systems. Even with these flexible systems, the efficiency is also really nice. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Dr. Fu. It all boils down to education, doesn't it, and upbringing of children, and in terms of getting to that point that you're talking about, as to say that you be able to do what you have the competence and interest in doing, irrespective of your gender. That's the issue. So the environment around you, it has to give both the sexes the opportunity of choosing what they want. So that boils down to education of all our surrounding, of our parents, of our grandparents, and our colleagues, doesn't it? Now, moving into the, I'm not sure, because we started a bit later, whether we have a full 45 minutes or we are still okay on time? Are we okay? Don't want to tire the people. So if we move then the discussion on a bit into the future, so you know, to both of you, how do you foresee the future? Are you optimistic? Do you see good signs in terms of the increase of share of women in the STEM sector? Do you see new initiatives being brought forth by the government or by institutions? How do you project the future in the sector? Dr. Yang.
So I think the future is very hopeful. And like mentioned, there now in many fields, there are more female than male. For example, education, and in the universities, in life science, chemistry, sometimes materials, and social science, and humanities, and so on. So they are gradually more female than male. So when I work for the government, the Ministry of Education, so we try to recruit the new staff. So the recruitment is through the examination. So once my division need 2 persons, then we look up the top 10 candidate who has the best score. 9 are female, only 1 is male. So that means we gradually see female or female scientists or administrators emerge from many fields. And also now in the higher education enrollment, they're about equal. And in masters, maybe also almost equal. So there are only a few barriers. So I think that is the very hopeful in the future.
You, Dr. Fu, are you optimistic about the future?
I think currently for the young generations, they are in much better environment than before. So this is reason, even for myself, right? We have a lot of chance. Don't think about male or female. But also, even we have better environment, but I really want to say here for the young women, yourself should be think about what you want. Not also you should choose your environment, because you know surrounding you have so many different voices. So you have to think about what you really want to do. And if you do that, and I believe even you have sometimes waiting time is fine, because the environment is already better. So you just believe that and try your best, and the result will be good. Don't think about too much for the future. Yeah, this is what I want to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fu. Then to return, perhaps as the last question and last issue, back to the he for she theme. Perhaps I'll start with you, Dr. Fu. What can we, men, do more in terms of supporting women in the STEM field?
Yeah, this is really good question. I think the important things when you think about this people, don't think she is a female. I think this is important. Don't give the label to this person, you are female. I think this is for the men's angle should be, if they can do that, and that means everything is more fair, you know. And then even don't take the woman, you know, as one parties, you know, just taking as her as one individual. That's, I think if the man can do that, it will be changed a lot. Because of this, even for the review side, right? The proportion of the review who have the right to decide something, because of this, the improvement of this proportion of the female were also helpful. So this is what I'm thinking.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fu. That was a good answer. Dr. Yang, can we do this? Can we talk to our colleagues and work with our colleagues and get them to think in these terms?
Yeah, I think all the male colleague will very much welcome what Dr. Fu just suggested. And also as a male, we should also do something to meet this effort in halfway. For example, try to promote our female colleagues academically and also give them more responsibilities. And also for the collaborations in research, give more credit to them. That is very important. And also in various organizations, for example, in the organization in CWAST, the China Association of Science and Technology, we should have more leaders of female.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. I think on that positive note, we should bring this to the end. And I hope that we will have the opportunity to bring your proposals to fruition. Thank you very much, Dr. Fu. Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. And thank you very much for a very good conversation.
I want to express my great appreciation for all of you on the stage. First of all, Ms. Ambassador, since you are the moderator, I will talk about you later, but these two one lady and one gentleman, so open in expressing what they are thinking to all of us. And also, I see this very inclusive dialogue. Mr. Ambassador, you have give us a great example of great listening abilities. What is real listening? So thank you, all of you. Appreciate it. 谢谢，谢谢。Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yes. Congratulations. 谢谢两位啊。非常高兴看到我们的中国的科学家用非常流利的英文，在我们这样的一个国际舞台上跟大家进行沟通，并且真诚的表达我们的观点啊，我也是很感动。谢谢我们两位嘉宾啊。那今天呢，我们的活动呢就告一段落了。再次感谢各位的光临，我们希望今天的讨论能够成为未来我们前进的一个动力。Thank you so much once again for this wonderful policy dialogue. Thank you.